You should see the other guy. How being the underdog helped me get ahead in life, love, and business. Life Lessons from Navy SEALs, Millionaires, and Celebrity Bikers by Kolby Kolibas. As read by me, Kolby Kolibas. One Man Wolfpack Publishing. Researched and written by Kolby Kolibas. First published in the United States of America by One Man Wolfpack Publishing. This book is dedicated to my mother, Susan Elaine Finch. I love you, Mom. And for my beautiful children, Zion, Sophie, Noah, and Max. Disclaimer. Before you continue, I've got to share something with you. This book will make you uncomfortable. It'll make you second guess other books you've read, and it will make you emotional. Also, I write like I speak. There are strategically placed explicitives throughout these pages. And to be 100% honest, it's who I am. And I like who I am. Also, these are stories from my life and my personal experiences. They're tales of love, loss, and winning. But I've also done my best to protect the innocent while providing a solid narrative. This is not an autobiography, and these stories do not come at you in chronological order. It's written in a way for you to pick up the book, simply open any page, and read. There's no right or wrong way to consume this book. Thank you for taking a risk and joining me on something deeply personal. Cheers. Kolby was here. When you stay ready, you never have to get ready. Rib. Active duty, Navy SEAL. Introduction. You're an idiot. You're a moron. You're never going to make it. You're never going to amount to anything. Those are all horrible ideas. Well, if these phrases or statements have been used at you, about you, or even in your general direction, this book was written for you. For as long as I can remember, I've always been the underdog. The one that swam against the current and fought against the tides. When the masses went one way, I saw opportunities to do something different. When others were looking for ways to fit in, I was looking for ways to simply be me. However, on the other side of this are phrases like, you're brilliant, you're a huge success, you can do anything you put your mind to, you've changed my life, your ideas are revolutionary. So what in the hell separates the two? If we're the losers, misfits, rebels, and outcasts, does that mean that everybody else has it all figured out? Do some people just have life handed to them while the rest of us merely struggle to get out of bed most days? 2 years ago, my world came crashing down on top of me for the umpteenth time. This time was different. There were different emotions and circumstances that had me straddling the thin line between jail time or breakthrough. Lucky for me and my loved ones, I chose the latter. Existing or proactively living are very different things. At that moment, I was simply going through the proverbial motions of life. There was something missing. No amount of work, time at the gym, or self-help books were going to be able to save me from myself this time. You see, no matter what problems you face in your personal or professional life, if you're not asking the right questions, you'll never really find the correct answers. You simply wake up each day, walk onto the hamster wheel, and go for a spin inside a world you've created for yourself. Well, the purpose of this book is to show you that experiences, adversity, mistakes, and life challenges are actually your strengths. They separate you from everyone else. They are the things that no one can take away from you. They are hidden secrets to your success. You don't need anyone's permission to be happy, love unconditionally, or to experience copious amounts of success. You don't need anyone's permission to start living the life you're meant to lead. You need to forgive yourself for the past and discover your future purpose. The struggle to get these words down was real. There were thousands of excuses I could have given to myself to not complete this book. My personal life, relationships, money, work, health. There was one reason I continued. That one reason kept me going when I wanted to stop. That one reason pushed me through the sleepless nights and numerous distractions. I wrote this book for one person. I don't know who you are yet. I just knew that I had to get these words down for you. This book had to make it into your hands at this very moment. If only one book is sold or given away, and you happen to be the person that's reading, or in this case, listening right now, and if these words on these pages help you realize that you're not alone and you're inspired to do something great and go on to impact others, then every tear, drop of blood, and loss I've experienced was worth it, and my life has not been in vain. There is one person this book is for. That one person will go on to change tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of lives. Is that person you? Are you the person I wrote this book for? The cool thing about having an audio book is it allows me to go off script a bit. The foreword is very special to me. You see, it's written by a good friend of mine. His name is Dan Clark. Dan is one of the main contributors to the Chicken Soup for the Soul series, and him and I have become pretty close over the last year or so. In that, he's heard my stories and the things I've gone through and really pushed me to get this book done. So, as I finished the book, he sat down and offered a foreword. To hear somebody else talk about you is always interesting. I'm going to read this. It's a very special piece for me, and I'm honored to call him a friend and a mentor. Foreword. Every once in a while, we cross paths with an extraordinary human being with whom we connect heart to heart, spirit to spirit, and soul to soul. In my belief system, it's because the universe has put into motion what I call human orbits and divine rendezvous, wherein one human being is a specific orbit and another human being is a different specific orbit. But for some reason, the two orbits intersect and collide. When they do, my belief also affirms that it happened for a reason, and it is our responsibility to determine what that reason is. Nothing happens by chance. Nothing happens to us. Everything happens for us. The universe knows no such law as luck and coincidence. We live in a cause and effect world governed by specific laws and proven principles. The sooner we learn these laws and comprehend their rewards for obedience and consequences for disobedience, the sooner we can make self-mastery permanent, make winning personal, make leadership automatic, make our families matter most, and shorten our learning curve to take us from where we are to where we want to be. Because of this universal reality, I met Kolby Kolibas for a reason, and he's changed my life in amazing ways. In fact, it is in the high-performance mindset that he has now become my friend and colleague who has written this compilation of personal stories, philosophical observations, quotable antidotes, and life lessons learned about unconditional love of self, of others, of family and home and work and of play. And yes, Kolby is the perfect credible choice to write such a book because he's literally experienced the thrill of victory and agony of defeat seemingly every day of his roller coaster life. As I read through the pages of this manuscript, three things become blatantly obvious. First, Kolby is not like most authors, entrepreneurs, family counselors, and business philosophers who sugarcoat a lot of things. Kolby is a true maverick who is one of those unique risk takers crazy enough to believe that he can change the world with vision, purpose, tenacity, forgiveness, reconciliation, and love. I put Kolby in the category of the Wright brothers, Thomas Edison, Stephen Jobs, Sir Richard Branson, Brendan Burchard, Gary Vaynerchuk, and Grant Cardone, who all possess the same brash attitude that if you're not living on the edge, you're taking up way too much room. You need to do more than make a living. You must make a difference. Second, and a totally honest, no-holds-barred vulnerability, Kolby shares powerful conversations and emotional events from his life that echo my sentiment that when we begin with the end in mind, it forces us to focus on a destination that's impressive, do our best to manage people, and reward those results. I call this accomplishing success, which only gets us what we want. However, when we begin with the why in mind, it inspires us to focus on the journey that's important, manage the expectations, and reward efforts so we want what we get. I call this achieving the level beyond success, which is living on purpose and enjoying a meaningful life of significance. To Kolby, this is more than a philosophy. It's his chosen way of life and living to the max. Third, and based on this understanding, Kolby has created a unique and powerful credo that quantifies his incredible life experiences, knowledge, and wisdom into an itemized 7-letter acronym known as JOURNEY. J, just the beginning. O, obstacles. U, understanding. R, road. N, now. E, energy. Y, you. Guaranteed as you read and ponder the obvious in-your-face truths and take time to discover the many subtle, in-between-the-lines messages that Kolby so eloquently explains, you'll be able to do what Kolby has done and fix your broken heart, failed business, and messed up relationships to become better today than you were yesterday. Why? Because life is a one step at a time, one experience, one relationship, one job, one motorcycle ride at a time journey. In fact, when you finish reading this masterpiece, you will firmly comprehend that happily ever after, in every aspect of our lives, is a day-at-a-time proposition. I take great pride in calling Kolby Kolibas my friend, mentor, and pray that one day you can hear him speak and meet him up close and personal so you can thank him for being your mentor too. Dan Clark, Hall of Fame speaker, New York Times best-selling author of The Art of Significance, high-performance business coach, CSP, CPAE. The crazy ones. Here's to the crazy ones, the misfits, the rebels, the troublemakers, the round pegs in the square holes, the ones who see things differently. They're not fond of rules, and they have no respect for the status quo. You can quote them, disagree with them, glorify or vilify them. About the only thing you can't do is ignore them, because they change things. They push the human race forward. And while some may see them as the crazy ones, we see genius, because the people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do. Rob Sultanian. Start here. The tears streaming down my cheeks begin to freeze my eyes closed. My hands are stuck to the handlebars. The cramping in my fingers begins to run up my arms. I can't tell if my hands are pulling on the brake or the throttle. The inside of my thighs hug the fuel tank, looking for warmth. I begin to shake so hard the road starts to feel like it's moving out from underneath me. Just then, a very distinct voice echoes through my headphones. Think I'll lose my mind if I don't find something to pacify. Can you help me occupy my brain? Black Sabbath, Ozzy singing Paranoid, fills my helmet. What a perfect song for this specific moment. As I look to my right mirror, I see Doc T coming up from behind. He looks over, smiles, laughs, puts his hand out to motion, thumbs up or thumbs down. I shake my head and reluctantly give him the thumbs up to signal the fact that I'm good to continue for another 60 minutes. Travis Doc T. Hall is not only our team captain, he's a career Army Ranger in Green Beret. To my right is Rib, a 20-year active Navy SEAL and American hero. And directly in front of me is Michael Rod, who is on the advisory council for the Military Service Initiative supporting George W. Bush. Everywhere I look are men and women who have served this amazing country. They've been in battles no Hollywood movie would ever be able to capture. They are warriors, heroes, and some of the most amazing people I've ever met. Do you think for one moment I was ever going to give a thumbs down? Oh, hey, pull over, guys. I know you've been in way worse conditions and you kept going. I want to pull over now because I can't go on. There's a good chance I'm probably going to lose a few fingers, maybe some toes. Hell no. We came into this ride together and we ride all the way through as a unit. No one's left behind. We're all in this together. Let's put this into perspective, shall we? Well, there's cold, damn cold, and I see my life flashing in front of me, freezing. And we're well past the hell freezing over temperatures and on to a new level of cold. Hypothermia sets in because your body loses heat faster than it can produce heat. This causes a dangerously low body temperature to occur. Think of it this way. As you listen to this audio book, your body temperature is most likely around 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit. Hypothermia starts to occur as your body temperature falls below 95 degrees Fahrenheit. Although the numbers seem really small, that swing is when your body starts to change. Now let's amp up the factors and add in a 2018 Harley-Davidson Heritage motorcycle. Some side winds of around 30 to 32 miles per hour. And speed, let's just say we're all going the speed limit on our way to Post, Texas. And the highway sign posted is 75 miles an hour. Take in all of those factors. The conditions with the wind chill are going to range around 23 degrees to 35 degrees Fahrenheit. No layer of clothes, gloves, jackets, or pants are going to keep the ice temperatures from hitting places you never even knew could get cold. Like the inside of your thighs or under your toenails. If it's 40 degrees or 50 degrees Fahrenheit outside, and you're on a motorcycle doing 75 miles an hour, that wind chill is about 23 to 39 degrees. That is 3 degrees colder than the temperature needed to freeze hell over. I checked. This adventure started with the founder of Era 3, Sterling Beckland and Travis Doc T. Hall. They wanted to take some motorcycles out, cross a few state lines, and end up at the Las Vegas SHOT Show convention. Sounded like a fun thing to be part of, so they invited some friends. You know the phrase, you are who you hang out with? Well, if you're one of the military's elite, who do you call to do crazy things with? Some of your friends that also happen to be some amazing, batshit crazy patriots. If you don't possess the maturity to deal with the unknown, you don't deserve to wear the green beret. SFC Kolinsky, instructor. It all happened pretty quick, like over the matter of a few weeks. From the idea to a full group of 16 riders, 2 chase vehicles, and an RV, the Destination Nowhere team was formed. For good measure, a documentary film crew came along to capture the whole thing. My friend Steve met Sterling, the founder of the ride, at an industry conference. Over a shared love for Harleys, a kinship formed, and Steve and I were added to the lineup. And it's funny how a powerful brand can bring people together. It's like when you see somebody sitting at Starbucks on a new MacBook. You nod and have this silent agreement that you know something only cool people know. It's like that, but with more tattoos, leather, and the smell of petrol. People who ride Harleys know we are a special bunch as we share the same love for the road and our machines. The ride started in Dallas, Texas, and ended in Las Vegas. The whole experience was roughly 1,200 miles, wheels up to wheels down. And along the way, each stop had a series of activities, shenanigans, and wild adventures for us to get into. Growing up, my father served in the Army and was deployed during the Vietnam War. When he was alive, we didn't really talk about it that much. He loved his country and was honored to have had the opportunity to serve. I could also tell it was hard for him to talk about his time in the service. Until you've been in combat, lost a friend in battle, or been under enemy fire, I don't know that most of us civilians would understand the experience. After 9/11, I began helping support combat veterans get reacclimated into civilian life. By leveraging the skill sets learned in the service, many men and women can parlay into creating a business. And for many, it's about finding the next mission. My way of giving back has been in serving those who have served us. I serve with honor on and off the battlefield of life. Mark Devine, Navy SEAL, and best-selling author. Getting to spend a week with some of the country's elite on motorcycles was a dream for me. The stories, the camaraderie, the opportunities to learn and serve all made this such a special experience. From the belly laughs, long miles, and late nights of pushing my liver to the limits, 2 major things stand out for me in my time with these amazing people. Some of the world's most elite human beings are U.S. Navy SEALs and/or Army Rangers. They are the best of the best. It takes years of training and sacrifice to become and remain one of the world's elite. It starts with proving that you're already among the world's top 1%. It's seldom the physical strength or tactical skills that make someone a SEAL or Ranger. It's the mental toughness, the refusal to quit, and self-discipline that makes them stand out. Grit is drilled into these warriors' DNA through to the core. Once the grueling months of training and selection begins, somewhere around 75 to 80% fail or drop out. Of the top 1%, less than 20% make it on to wear the title and honor of SEAL or Ranger. And what makes these warriors so special? There's a mental and spiritual fortitude that exists without a doubt. Outside of that, what could I personally take away with how the world's top 1% operate and show up every day? They hold themselves to a higher standard. There's an honor and valor that exists in how they treat others and what they expect of themselves. They live by a set of guidelines and beliefs that model their actions. The Rangers call it the Ranger Creed. The Ranger Creed, R, Recognizing that I volunteered as a ranger, fully knowing the hazards of my chosen profession, I will always endeavor to uphold the prestige, honor, and highest spirit of the corps of the rangers. A. Acknowledging the fact that a ranger is a more elite soldier who arrives at the cutting edge of battle by land, sea, or air. I accept the fact that as a ranger, my country expects me to move further, faster, and fight harder than any other soldier. N. Never shall I fail my comrades. I will always keep myself mentally alert, physically strong, and morally straight, and I will shoulder more than my share of the task, whatever it may be, 100%, and then some. G. Gallantly will I show the world that I am a specially selected and well-trained soldier. My courtesy to superior officers, neatness of dress, and care of equipment shall set the examples for others to follow. E. Energetically will I meet the enemies of my country. I shall defeat them on the field of battle, for I am better trained and will fight with all of my might. Surrender is not a ranger word. I will never leave a fallen comrade to fall into the hands of the enemy, and under no circumstances will I ever embarrass my country. R. Readily will I display the intestinal fortitude required to fight on to the ranger objective and complete the mission, though I be the lone survivor. Rangers lead the way. Read it again, and then one more time. If the 1% of top performers and the heroes I look up to live by a set of guidelines and beliefs that model their actions, why don't I? Do companies I work with or support have a creed? Do my friends or counterparts have a creed that they live by? Do people we come in contact with daily have a personal creed? If over 75% of the top armed forces men and women don't make it to become a Ranger or SEAL, could that mean that over 98% of civilians don't have the mental toughness, the refusal to quit, and the self-discipline required to operate at the highest levels? Well, forget about the 98%. Do I have what it takes? I'm not talking about just the physical and mental. I'm also looking at the spiritual and financial aspects. Wrap the Ranger Creed principles into who I am in all aspects of my life. If top performers held themselves to a higher standard by following a creed, what could be learned in my day-to-day by following the same methods? How much more productive could I be? How much better would my relationships be? How much better would my business be? How much better could I be as a human if I simply lived by a personal creed? Over the past 5 months, I looked at my life, the good, the bad, and the worse. And then I took a look at the wins, the happiness, and success that I had experienced. What were the common threads, the routines, and the lessons learned? Well, in doing this, I've developed a personal creed that aligns to the format and stories you'll find in this book. When building, developing, and testing this system, I had to look at where I'd been, where I am now, and where I'd like to be in the future. Journey. J. Just the beginning. Each day is a blessing and the start to begin anew. I accept the responsibility of my chosen path and embrace my way of life. It's a privilege that I must earn each and every day. O. Obstacles. I will traverse through the perils in front of me and navigate uncertainty and hard times as a leader. I lead by example in all situations. U. Understanding. I persist and shine in the face of adversity, understanding that quitting is not an outcome I choose. R. Road. My family and friends expect me to be physically prepared and mentally capable to traverse the rough and smooth roads of life no matter the conditions. N. Now. I understand that my life's mission doesn't start when things are easy. It begins when I feel that I can no longer continue. E. Energy. I am power, love, and success. No matter the bumps in the road, if I get knocked down, I will get back up every time. Y. U. Life is greater than I. There is a greater purpose that allows me to humbly serve those who are unable to help or defend themselves. I accept the inherent outcomes of my passion, work, and actions. There is no road I cannot travel. There is no adversity that will take priority. These stories, experiences, and lessons are my life's journey. Bottom line, I'm proud of this creed and deeply committed to living by it as a guide to keep me focused on the journey that's important and stop focusing on a destination that's impressive. However, we all know creeds don't work unless we do. As you will see throughout these pages, I'm not one to talk about theory. I like to focus on the tactics and execution steps. Achieving a level beyond success and becoming an everyday peak performer at home, at school, at work, at play requires a disciplined implementation formula. Therefore, I've amalgamated a 4-step practical application process into each of the 7-letter journey acronym steps that will ensure your journey is everything that it's supposed to be. This is the 4-step question and answer process. The 4 pillars. 1. Identify the time-sensitive problem. 2. Create a solution to the problem. 3. Validate that the solution works. 4. Execute, aka sell your face off. No matter what you've identified or what the problem is that you're facing in your personal or professional life, if you will take the necessary time to apply these 4 pillars and look for the remedy solutions in the stories, philosophies, and psychologies illuminated in this book, I guarantee you will start living a life of fuller purpose. As my good friend and colleague Dan Clark says, knowledge is power, but knowledge has no heart. We don't learn to know, we learn to do. And all the information in the world is not going to make a person successful. You will discover in this book that only when your attitude is right will your abilities catch up. And one of the most powerful ways to get your attitude right and keep it right is to have what we call an accountability partner. Someone or something like this book that will eliminate the distractions and keep you focused and motivated to stay on course so you thrive on your journey through life. To set the attitudinal tone for the rest of your reading, or listening in this case, I conclude this introductory chapter with 3 reminders. 1. Under pressure, you step up your game. You succumb to the level of your preparation, training, and practice, which means pressure is not something that is naturally there. It's created when you question your own ability. When you know that you've been trained to do, there is never any pressure. Which means exhaustion is acceptable, failing is acceptable, crawling is acceptable, puking is acceptable, blood, sweat, and tears are acceptable, discouragement, disappointment, and sadness are all acceptable. But whining, blaming, complaining, and quitting are not. You can't quit. It's a league rule. No pain, no gain really means no heart, no chance. That's why we train and practice so hard. Dan Clark. 2. You're under no obligation to be the same person you were a year, month, day, or even 15 minutes ago. You have the right to grow, but can only grow when you comprehend sadness gives depth, where happiness gives height. Sadness gives roots. Happiness gives branches. Happiness is like a tree growing up into the sky, and sadness is like the roots going down into the womb of the earth. The higher a tree goes and the bigger it grows, the bigger and deeper the roots. Both are needed for balance, simultaneous, and in proportion. Osho, Rajneesh. And 3, live every day like your brothers are watching. They are watching and are proud of you. Making your fallen brothers proud is to live every day to your greatest potential. Honor their sacrifice by living your life to your greatest potential in their names. Travis, Doc T. Hall, Army Ranger in Green Beret. Chapter 1.1. J. Just the beginning. Does God use Venmo? Let me ask you an honest question. What's more important, gas or groceries? Gas to get to work, which allows you the opportunity to earn a paycheck. Getting paid allows the ability to get groceries. On the 1st and the 15th of each month, that cycle repeats. Well, here you are on the 12th of the month with your tanks on empty. Here you are on the 12th of the month with your tank on empty and your cupboards bare. If you have kids, what's more important, diapers or formula? You run out of both at the same time 4 days before payday and can only purchase one for your 1-year-old daughter. What do? 8 out of 10 American workers say that they live paycheck to paycheck to make ends meet. According to a new survey from Career Builder, that can force people to take on extra debt and otherwise struggle with unexpected bills. Here I am standing in the kitchen where I've found myself hundreds of times before. All of these thoughts are swirling around my head as I stand with a blank look on my face. We're making enough to live. The more fitting word is survive. We're barely making enough to not go bankrupt. The paycheck I get is literally one pay cycle behind. All the bills we have are adding up. I'm not playing catch up. I'm playing please don't shut the lights off because we're a month behind. All of these things are going on and I still have this huge business debt sitting on top of me like a backpack full of rocks. After we folded the business, we ended up paying a little over $200,000 back to all of our customers. We proactively refunded all of our clients as we closed the doors. You see, your name and reputation are really all you have in business. There was no way I was going to allow mine to be tarnished after 15 years of busting my ass to get where I was. We also never claimed bankruptcy. The business debt carried over into my personal accounts, and we still had over $400,000 of debt to shovel through. Having a 6-figure day job barely kept the lights on. We were not going to be able to pay down the additional debts. The need for having additional sides of income haunted me with every waking moment. The worst part was I know how to build companies, create income, and help others. I just couldn't muster the power to keep moving. Until it hit me all in the face. You see, being broke and in debt and unhappy are all great motivators to get your ass in gear to make some major changes. There I was as I stood in the kitchen, and my wife at the sink with her back to me. I can hear her breathing and I see she's struggling. I place my hand gently on her shoulder, turn her around. Tears are streaming down her face. The thing is, I knew it had to do with money, as that was from where most of our relationship issues stemmed. When you dive into the numbers, over 50% of divorces can be traced to financial issues. Now, I really understand why. The pressure, disappointment, the lack of trust in providing. Okay, I need to stop things for just a moment, go off script. Most books that you read or listen to are filled with really smart quotes by smart people to make the author sound smart and the reader to feel even enlightened. Well, for me, I've taken a little bit of a different approach with this project. I do have some quotes and strategically placed things that mean something to me, but moreover, the book is filled with lyrics and song phrases that I've chosen from songs that meant something to me. So in the middle of the chapters and the things that you're reading, you're going to hear me break into small verses of songs that meant something to me at that time or as I wrote the book. Let's continue. The 10 Crack Commandments. Number 10. A strong word called consignment, strictly for live men, not for fresh men. If you ain't got the clientele, say hell no, 'cause they gwan want their money, rain, sleet, hail, or snow. Biggie Smalls. My kids are very specific and picky about a few things. Food is one, and what they drink is another. I'm not sure where or how this happened, yet they love juice. Not just any juice, treetop apple juice. All 3 of my younger kids, ages 9, 7, and 3, love a half and half cup of water and good old apple juice. Mealtime is really like an episode of Gordon Ramsay's Hell's Kitchen. Everyone's in on their own. And they do, however, drink juice. So much so that we have to go to Costco and load up on 6 to 10 bottles at a time. Our eldest son Noah comes wobbling into the kitchen with his juice cup in hand like a miniature drunk Irishman on St. Patty's Day. Juice. No please or may I, just the word juice. My wife and I's role in the home as a part-time bartender to 3 pushy kids. Coming right up, sir. As I turn to the cupboard, I lean down to grab a 10-gallon jug of juice. I know Noah's drinking buddies are soon behind him and they'll have cups in hand asking for another round. There's no juice. I make a comment to my wife that we don't have any juice. She says, I know, and we have no money in our bank account. We don't get paid for 3 more days. This is hard to swallow, as it's the first time in my life that I've not been able to provide the basics for my family. Yes, I could have borrowed a few dollars. And yes, I most likely had the change in a jar somewhere. And yes, I could get to the store. But in that moment, hearing my wife utter the words, "We have no money in our bank account," in my heart, I've always known that I'm doing the right things. I'm putting in the work and showing up every damn day. Things are going to work out. Yet how do you explain that feeling to your wife and young children? You really can't. So you work on assuring that they understand and see what you're doing and hear the confidence in your voice when you say, "It's all going to be okay. I promise." We're going to work through it. We've always worked through it. All the things are aligned. We've just got to keep putting in the reps day in and day out. Just keep working. It's going to work. Something's going to click. It has to, right? It has always worked out in the past. Is this time going to be different? I mean, it has to work out, right? Before I head upstairs, I hug my wife and try to console her. It's in that moment the weight of everything is more heavy than it's ever been before. I realize that I'm literally a paycheck behind and over $400,000 in debt. This shit is not working and something's got to break. It's all going to come crashing down. I'm making money, but I'm a paycheck behind. We're living on money that hasn't even come in yet. You know the saying, my mouth is writing a check my ass can't cash? Yeah, something like that. I grab my phone and climb into bed. The tears start streaming down my eyes. I look up at the sky, close my eyes. Here it comes. Okay, God, I'm turning this over to you as I literally have no idea what else to do. All right, there's a life lesson here. Continually, I'm in these scenarios where I haven't asked you for anything, God. I need some help. I need a sign. I legitimately didn't know when the next set of money was going to come in. Yes, there were a bunch of outstanding invoices and a stack of contracts that hadn't been paid. My consulting, my coaching, my freelance work all had open invoices out for services rendered. As I surrendered myself to this higher power, I prayed to God. But I knew I couldn't ask God for money because that's really not how things work. So instead, I'll steal the neighbor's bike and ask him for forgiveness instead. Okay, that's not what happened. But this is a heavy moment. I need you to keep listening. If my only job is to protect and provide for my family, I'm sure doing a shitty job. In that exact moment, I take a deep breath, a sigh of relief almost. Then there's a sound I'll never forget chimes in. In this emotional moment, the air is calm and I'm settling into the fact that I have no idea what to do next. A sound pierces the air. The sound of two glasses clinking together. The sound of change dropping on the floor. The sound of a cash register being rung and the drawer being opened. Well, that sounds an alert that comes from my PayPal account. It's the sound of money hitting my account. There's no way that this just happened. As I slowly peel my eyes open and look down, my eyes begin to focus and I see it. There it is. There is no way this just happened. A $3,000 invoice had just been paid. Well, this money came from a guy who owed me money for a long time. I honestly didn't think he was ever going to pay me. In that moment, I started laughing hysterically out loud, belly laughs as if the joke was on me all along. Now, I'm not saying the universe is always going to provide, and it usually doesn't happen like that. But in that specific moment, something special happened. The energy and momentum of the universe was in our favor. Well, as any good husband, I don't tell my wife about our new financial position. Instead, I transfer the $3,000 from our PayPal to our bank account. Then I take two pictures. One is a selfie with a thumbs up, because that's what you do. And the other is a picture of our bank deposit. 15 minutes beforehand, I was standing in my kitchen lending support and encouragement to my wife, assuring things would improve. And the next thing I know, I'm sending my wife selfies. To all my parents whose kids insist on a frosty juice box, let us raise a glass and repeat. May the winds of fortune sail you. May you sail a gentle sea. May it always be the other guy who says, "This drink's on me." Irish Limerick. Chapter 1.2. J. Just the beginning. Where words fail, music speaks. How awesome is music? I mean, really think about that statement for a moment. You know, when that one song comes on, that song that puts a smile on your face, it takes you right back to a specific moment in time. What song comes to mind when I say that? Close your eyes for a minute. Take a breath in and think of that song, what it means and how it makes you feel. Music is awesome, right? My eyes were closed as I lay on the floor. I remember listening, waiting, squinting my eyes as if that would make the audio more clear. 30 seconds in and I'm like, where are the words? There are no words. I like the guitar and all, but where in the hell are all the words? My friend Ty leans over with a grin. Shut up. Sometimes words get in the way of the music. Sometimes the best songs don't even have words. I remember laying on the floor listening to that song probably 100 times in a row and just kept being so blown away by how beautifully orchestrated the guitar sounded. The year was 1996 and I remember it like it was yesterday. The song? Stevie Ray Vaughan covering Jimi Hendrix's Little Wing. Sometimes words really do get in the way of a good song. Little Wing. It's all right, she said. It's all right. Take anything you want from me. Anything. Anything. Fly on, Little Wing. Jimi Hendrix. Who knew the power of laying on a floor and digesting the influence of music would open up so many doors? My love for music took me on an adventure across the country, led me to get married, which also included the birth of our first daughter, Zion. Utah has always felt like home to me. Some of my first family memories are buried in those mountains. There's no coincidence that Brigham Young came over the mountain range and said, "This is the place." I'm guessing the dude was sick of walking around the range and his wife kept asking him to finally stop, pull the wagons over so the women could pee. There was a major movement happening in the music scene around 1998. EDM, or electronic dance music, was hitting its first strides and making waves across the United States. In Salt Lake City, EDM was very much an underground scene, meaning that's where the outcasts and misfits went. Coincidentally, I find myself in another group of people that seem to be the outliers, not the inliers, where everybody looks and kind of acts the same. This was a scene where those that were not accepted went to build a community. Broken homes, those fighting personal sexual identities, music lovers, and people who just wanted to lose their shit with some psychedelics and beats. You also had a group of amazing musicians and producers all building and growing together. It really was a community of people that shared a common interest no matter the background. Music. Who remembers the Raid Creed, Plur, peace, love, unity, and respect? I fell head over heels in love with electronic music, writing it, producing it, and going to parties whenever we could find them. That graduated to our small group eventually throwing the parties, producing music, DJing, hosting club nights, and parties. Well, that was really a full-time job for me in my 20s. There was a gap in the market. We were willing to just jump in and fill it. Where words fail, music speaks. Hans Christian Andersen. So here I am, 22 years old. I meet this girl from the music scene. We start having a relationship, get pregnant, get married, move into a house in the suburbs, all within 2 years of meeting each other. My relationship with our oldest daughter's mother lasted about as long as it took you to listen to me saying this. We were together about 2 years all in, yet things were about to completely change, and life as I knew it was about to be altered forever. I didn't want to be married for some reason. I don't know why. Maybe I was just selfish. You know, when I look back at it, that's exactly what it was. Divorce happens because one person's a dick. And at this point, I guess I was the dick. I was DJing 3 or 4 nights a week. I was bartending 3 or 4 nights a week. And I just didn't want to be married anymore. We got rid of the house, moved into an apartment. Our quality of life completely changed. And through that series of dynamics, being that young, it was too much to hang on to. I don't think emotionally and spiritually I was mature enough to make it work. So I left. I'm semi-good at a lot of things. Oh, wait, disclaimer. Being friends with an ex-lover or people I've had relationships with has never worked out for me. I think I'm just a dick, and once it's over, it's just over. Being friends with an ex after a breakup is like a kidnapper sending you a friend request on Facebook after just letting you go. Some shit simply just doesn't work for me. I'm not interested, Karen. I've never dated anybody named Karen. It just seemed like a Karen kind of thing to do. 17 years post-divorce, and I'm still dealing with the ramifications of that decision. It's taken me that long to forgive her and myself for the things that happened after the divorce. She didn't want to get divorced. We really didn't have anything to split up, share, or divvy outside our time and responsibilities of co-parenting. It wasn't really that messy. It broke her heart. She didn't want to do it. We got divorced. Chapter 2. Obstacles. Money doesn't buy you happiness. Money doesn't buy you happiness. Money buys freedom. It's what you do with those freedoms that makes you happy. Having been on both sides of the poverty line a few times, I would choose financial abundance over couch chips any day of the week. In today's digital world, everyone's competing with an image they build on social media. Instagram can easily give you the impression that everyone's living some amazing life. Well, I hate to break it to you, they're not. In fact, most people in your feed are chronically unhappy. As we peel back the stories and adventures within these pages, I want to be sure a few things come across. For me, the life lessons I have experienced have taught me the importance of humility, honor, and respect, not just for myself and others, but for abundance in all areas of my life. When you don't have money growing up, you have a different view as to what it means to have financial prosperity. To say I came from humble beginnings is a nice way of saying our family didn't have expendable funds. Money to me was a sign of success and became a huge driver for me as I entered into my career in technology. In 2005, I landed a job at a Fortune 500 company named Insight. With the almighty dollar in sight, new goals were established, and I was determined to break through the middle class. 3 years later, I hit a major milestone. It was the first time in my life that I'd made 6 figures. In my mind, it was a turning point, yet in reality, it was something more. The 6-figure turning point came and went. It wasn't as big of a milestone as I'd built it up to be. The more money that you make, the more you spend. The first big financial milestone was now in the rearview mirror. And when I look back at it, I may be the only one in my bloodline to cross that $100,000 a year mark. The rush I loved to chase came in the process of it all. I loved the process of hitting the milestones and the work it took to get there. Deep down, I don't ever think it was about the money. Setting a goal, understanding the tactics, doing the work, putting in the hours, well, that results in momentum needed to inch toward the goal. It's funny how that works. You want to lose 20 pounds. You don't just will yourself into being in shape. You start with a diet, a workout schedule, and commit to doing the work. You set timelines and write down the measurable outcomes you're looking to achieve. You show up every damn day and do the work. And at the end, the results are losing 20 pounds and you feel amazing. Money's the same way. In fact, all goals really fall into a very similar process. When was the question, not would or if. It was in these moments I realized that it wasn't the money that drove success. It was the art of winning, building, and serving others. That is the magic and difference between having money and being wealthy. My next goal wasn't financially based. It was more authority and role-based. The next big milestone on my radar was to become the youngest executive at a Fortune 500 company. Well, at least the youngest at my company. A big driver for me always has been this continuation of growth and personal development. This new goal wanted to be an executive, meaning I was a shareholder with a roadmap to becoming a vice president. The doorway to get there was through a director role. It takes 2 years, but a director position opens up in product management. I sharpen up my resume and I align with the executives. I showcase my ability to be a critical thinker. You see, it was important to establish that I was someone that could be trusted in this new role. All I needed was the opportunity. One person to take a chance on me. There really is something to be said about hard work. I may not be the smartest, most experienced, or talented person. Yet one thing is for sure. I know how to work. First in the office and last out. I'm willing to do whatever it takes to learn, build, and develop those critical skill sets. Well, the opportunity was presented, and I walked through those doors with my head high. I was prepared, ready, and humble for the opportunity to show others that I'm ready for the big leagues. All I needed was that chance. Well, it paid off in spades. I got the job offer. There I was in this new role, a new desk, a taller cubicle. I was in product management as the new director. And the goal of an executive was no longer a past thought, but it was in present reality. There was only one problem. It was boring as shit. I'm a sales guy through and through. Spreadsheets, budgets, and politics, they're not my strong suit. They've grown on me over the years, but they're not my competitive advantage. The doors of opportunity open again. New goals, new chances, and higher risks are all set out in front of me. Well, let's put this into perspective. If you want to lose 20 pounds, if you want to hit a specific business milestone, if you want to have $1 million in your bank account, what do? Would you set goals, build a system, or maybe pray? First off, you need to identify what the end result is that you're aiming to achieve. Then, distinguish the key movement thresholds that would signify you're getting closer to the results you're working towards. You have to set timelines. You need to look at the tactical actions needed to get into each threshold. Write them down, keep your eyes focused, and do the damn work. You show up every single day with discipline and execute until all of those thresholds are met. You need to establish realistic and measurable goals with a system that keeps track and holds you accountable. Goals can provide direction and even push you forward in the short term. Momentum is so important. Ultimately, a well-designed system wins. Having a system and process is really what matters. Committing to a process is what makes the difference. The system is what helps you scale no matter what the goal or objective is. You should look at setting goals for personal health, wealth, and relationships. I did this and still do this quarterly to keep me moving forward and improving on the key areas that are most important to me. You can't manage what you don't measure, and you can't improve on what you don't manage. We are continually faced by great opportunities, brilliantly disguised as insoluble problems. Lee Iacocca. The leadership team saw my skills and could tell I was at the end of my rope in this product role. They needed to get me back in sales where I would thrive and flourish. As I was coming back from our Canadian offices, I was challenged with a project. A spreadsheet with company names, products they'd purchased, and revenues from each company. It was roughly around $250 million of various licensing of software and services. And my task was to review this business and identify the missing pieces to see if we could turn this really into its own company. Well, with Wi-Fi, an internet browser, spreadsheet, and a couple of cold pints, I started doing my due diligence. What do these companies do? How do they do it? Why do they do it? Where do they do it? I started putting each company into little buckets. And for those of you that are familiar with the tech world, this was the start of cloud, or companies that offered hardware or, say, software as a service. The business was growing, thriving, and a huge opportunity was in front of us. I was tasked with putting my thoughts together and presenting a business plan to the executive team. Well, this huge disruption was changing how companies were doing business, and it didn't fit into our traditional model. We needed to evolve, to change, or we would get passed by. Well, what do you think? Our company will be irrelevant if we don't change our business model in the next 5 years. That's really all it took to get me back into a sales role. Identify a major hole or opportunity, present a solution, and step into solving those problems. You see, I'd found the market, identified the market size, understood our key differentiators, what we needed, what we had, what our competitive advantage was, and we delivered a business plan and got started. They gave me one sales guy. We were on the phone every single day just trying to build out what this model was going to look like, from operation to technical acumen, etc. That became 2 sales guys, 10 sales guys, 30 sales guys, field sales guys, engineering teams, project management. Then we had rebates, and we took that $250 million business to $500 million inside this huge organization. In doing so, I built this aura of being a young whiz kid. Here I was in my shining moment, driving revenue and solving high-level corporate problems at a Fortune 500 company. Not only had I earned my executive stripes, I had now earned credibility for being someone who was known as a critical thinker. Someone who could execute on ideas and make a ton of money in the meantime. Money. Money, it's a crime. Share it fairly, but don't take a slice of my pie. Money, so they say, is the root of all evil today. But if you ask for a rise, it's no surprise that they're giving none away. Pink Floyd. Chapter 3. You, Understanding. The hardest question I've ever had to answer. River. Oh, I want to come near you and give you every part of me, but there's blood on my hands and my lips aren't clean. Leon Bridges. The sunset finally cleared the sliding glass patio doors in the kitchen. You could see the dust particles in the air as the ceiling fan circulated in slow motion above me. There I find myself sitting in the dark with everything we owned in boxes stacked around the house. Stomach pains have me hunched over the table. My pride is packed into moving boxes marked Kolby's office on the ground next to me. This is the byproduct of what I thought was the defeat of losing a lawsuit against a corporate giant. We had shut down the company I had started and we were out of money. In this moment, I reach for my cell phone and something really interesting happens. There's a sense of pure shock from everything that has just transpired. I pick up my phone, turn on the camera. I begin shooting a video sharing what's going on in my life. Everything we own is in boxes behind me. My wife is gone and I'm not really sure what I'm going to do next. There are two things I do know. One is you can never count me out. I will always figure out a way to thrive and recover. Two, there's a process I've followed over the past 10 years in building companies. I'm going to build something and show you how I did it. I'm going to share the good, the bad, and the ugly with you every day on Facebook. I'll figure this out and take you along for the ride. Send. People have asked me what prompted me to film that video. I wish I could tell you there was like some answer, that I had it all planned out. It literally just happened as I explained it to you. Over the next 2 years, I did exactly what I said I would do. Each morning, I started with a workout, some reading, and then I would walk with our youngest son around the neighborhood. In the process of that walk, I'd hit the record button and do a video sharing the things I was working on that day. It was part motivation, tactical, and humor. Day in and day out, I shared what it took to build not one, but 2 businesses. This was from an idea to first dollar in the bank. I shared it all. Tools, process, procedures, what worked, failed, and scaled. Then it all came to a weird crossroads. On the outside, I'm the epitome of the cliche words hustle or grind. If you've ever seen Gary Vee or Grant Cardone, you know the type of work ethic I'm referring to. I really don't know if you'd find anyone that worked harder or more than I did at that point. There was also the whole documenting everything on social media that was attached. Not only was I building 2 companies, I was building a massive social media following and imprint in concert. Over those 2 years, we built 2 6-figure businesses. That doesn't take into account the 10 or so that didn't get off the ground. Yet the $1.2 million of debt that came from the lawsuit was a deep hole to get out of. $800,000 went back to customers that were buying from us. When we shut down the software company, we paid everyone back and let them know we were closing the doors. There was still this huge other variant of debt: homes, cars, business loans, etc. After we sold the house, I ended up using all the profits to build our businesses. Well, taking risks eventually caught up to me. Although I started 2 6-figure businesses from the ground up over 2 years, I wasn't able to make enough money to dig out from the financial pit I'd put my family in. On one hand, I'm working 70 hours a week, and on the other, it looks like I'm successful because I'm showcasing what I want you to see. Behind the scenes, something's changing. My relationships, health, and money are all caving in. For 2 years, my wife asked me for a few simple things. She wanted to know that I loved her. She wanted more time and attention. She needed to see extra efforts made to support and help her around the house. When I would address these needs from my wife, I was coming from a place of where we need to be versus where we are now. I kept telling her, not until the money's right. When the money's right, things will get back to normal. In my mind, I thought if I could just get back to making money that we had before, my relationships would all be better. Can I drop some science on you real quick? Harvard did a study on decision making and how our minds process data. In summary, they say by age 26, our brain is wired based on our life experiences up until that point. Your thought process stays in that circle for a majority of your adult life. That is, unless one of three things happens to you along the way: health, wealth, or relationships. Let me explain. Health. I want you to think about someone in your family or someone close to you that was diagnosed with cancer or another illness. Cancer is an easy one for me to relate to based on my own personal experiences with my mother. The disease ravishes families, peoples, and communities. Now let's talk about wealth. Think of when you lost a job, went into debt, had issues with your money, or struggled to pay your bills. How did that feel? And relationships. Have you ever been through a divorce or a major breakup? You know how devastating heartbreak can be. Well, each one of these experiences triggers something in your psyche. It changes you. Well, welcome to the next part of our story. Let's start with health. Over the span of 2 years, I had those 3 mind and life-altering experiences all happen to me, not once, but 2 separate times. One was at the start of a rebuilding process when we lost a software company. And the second happened most recently in November of 2017. This time, things were way different. Circumstances changed, and the health part really took a front seat, unlike anything I'd ever experienced in the past. You ever seen that film, The Machinist? It's a psychological thriller with Christian Bale. He plays an industrial worker who hasn't slept in a year, and it shows his pathway towards insanity based on his lack of sleep and other circumstances. Now, I want you to think of the last time you missed a good night's sleep. How about a few bad days of sleep? Hell, for good measure, let's say it's been over a year and you're averaging around 3 to 4 hours a night, if you're lucky. Now let's add into the fact that your joints and bones in your body hurt so bad, it hurts to stand. When you turn to get off the bed and step down to meet the floor, pins and needles shoot up your legs, up your spine, into your hands, into your hair. It happens one day and another day, then another day, to the point where you go 4 or 5 days with maybe only sleeping a couple hours at a time. That does something to your psyche. You become a different person when you don't sleep and you're not eating healthy foods. Now, come to find out, I had Lyme's disease. I had it for a year and had no idea. I just knew that there was something horribly wrong with me. How I lasted that long without doing something to myself or other people, I'll never know. To this day, when you meet me, you'll see my hands are crumpled and cramped. Many times it's hard to even hold things. I've got arthritis in my blood and I still deal with the pain daily. But at that point, I'd gone a year without having any idea what was wrong. Now let's talk about wealth. Money. Yeah, it's the reason we all work so hard. You know, the American dream, fast cars, big homes, boats, and bullshit. Although I'd built these 2 businesses, I wasn't able to financially get out of my own way. The debt from the previous company, burning through our savings, and the daily spending was way out of control. I was slipping further into debt. I felt like I was like riding a bicycle in the sand, pedaling and pedaling, just stuck, not moving. Relationships. My personal relationships at this time were completely upside down. Looking in from the outside, everybody thought my life was great. Beautiful kids, beautiful wife. You'd think that my relationships were awesome. Behind the scenes, I wasn't giving my wife what she needed because I was too busy building businesses, and I wasn't nearly as present as I should have been for my kids. I fell into hustling and grinding buzzwords as a way of life, or maybe even a badge of honor. Not only am I physically killing myself working 70 hours a week, eating like shit, with a disease I didn't even know I had, my relationships at home were worse than I'd ever imagined. It was like my wife and I were roommates. We weren't even in the same room half the time. We were just going through the motions. Then it all came to a head. I remember something was off. Something was really off. I came home one day. My health was starting to regain, money was starting to stabilize, but something was completely off at home. It was one day, then another day, and one more day. 3. There was major disruptions. There was something going on. Through a series of assumptions and paranoia, fear settles in. What do you think happens if the person you are with is begging for attention and over 2 years you keep saying, "No, honey, not now, not until our money's right"? If the tables were turned, I don't know that I would have lasted even 2 weeks. She's an angel and something special to have stayed around as long as she did. I'm an asshole most of the time, and I know I'm not an easy person to manage. What happened next was an event that had me spiraling into a catalyst that made me reevaluate everything around me. My wife packs up and heads to my in-laws. I get in my car. As I leave, all I can think about is my son, how he'd come down the stairs and right in the heat of a weak moment, heard his father yelling at the top of his lungs. Things that should never be said to another human being, let alone his mother. It was a fit of rage that could have ended with both of our lives being completely different today. As I drive away, I find myself slipping into my 16-year-old self. All I can hear are my dad's words echoing as he says, "You're going to end up dead or in jail, son." In the car at that moment of complete uncertainty, I make a phone call. There are many people in my inner circle I could have called. All of them are close people I care for, and I know have my best interests at heart. I call my friend Sean Whalen. Through our conversation, I make the decision to head to Salt Lake City. I grab some clothes, computer, and a notepad, and I jump back in the car. The drive from Phoenix to Utah, it's right around 11 hours, give or take. Aside from stopping for gas, I drive straight through. Every emotion, every decision, every good, bad, and different feeling keeps flushing over as the song "Release Me" from Pearl Jam plays over the radio. This song was heavy during my first heartbreak. The interesting thing is when you listen to the lyrics and the chorus rings, "Release me, just release me." It made a lot of sense when you went through a heartbreak of, why do I feel so shitty? Release me. I'll ride the wave where it takes me. I'll hold the pain. Release it. Pearl Jam. Here I find myself 20 years later listening to the same song with the same emotions, wondering, why have I done this to myself yet again? Sean specializes in helping people get clear on what it is they really want in life. He's a punch you in your face, kick you in the ass, no bullshit human being. But he's also the guy who will lend out his hand, pull you up, and share a whiskey, all while giving you an embrace that you need. I needed someone to tell me the truth, break it all down, and really push me. Here I was stuck and in desperate need to get pushed out of this hole I'd created for myself. Sean was the dude that could do that for me. I don't need to go into the specifics of what happened over the next week, as that time and the conversation are still things I process today. For over 2 years, my friend Sean had asked me one simple question. I would go through the motions of answering, yet I never really dug into the question or in providing my reply that was more than just a short answer. What do you want? It seems like the easiest question that you'll ever get asked, but it's really the hardest one you'll ever have to answer. As I sit in this kitchen, tears roll down my face as I say, you know what? I don't know what I want. I just know what I don't want. I don't want to be angry anymore. I just don't want to be angry anymore. Why are you angry? Sean yells in my face with this huge beard and this massive presence. I'm angry at my health. I got diagnosed with Lyme's disease. I'm 20 pounds overweight. It hurts. Every ounce of me hurts. I'm taking too many medications. I'm taking opiates now every day. I don't feel good. I hate the way that I feel. What else are you angry at? I'm angry at my relationships or lack of relationships. I don't have one with my wife. I don't have a relationship with my kids. I'm angry at my money. I'm working too damn hard to be this broke. What do you want? Now, when I take a step back and I look at those things, there was one commonality between all of them. My health, my relationships, and my money. Me. That's right. The core aspect to all of my problems was in a one-word answer. Me. I was the linchpin between all of these things I was most angry about. Well, here's the good thing. I could change that. The bad thing? It's been me all along. Every scenario, every situation, all the good, all the bad, I am the linchpin. Drastic changes require drastic change. As I pulled the core fundamentals of my anger and my unhappiness together, I needed a starting point. One thing was for certain. If I was not mentally and physically and spiritually strong, none of the other concerns would even matter. In my journal, I wrote down 3 things I didn't want. 1, I don't want to be unhealthy. 2, I don't want bad relationships. 3, I don't want to struggle for money. Sean has this phrase, the king eats first. If the king is not healthy, how can he protect the kingdom? It's not so much selfish as it's learning to be selfless through looking inward. I needed to save myself before I could save anyone else. It starts and ends with me. The one thing all of your problems have in common is you. Personal health and wellness. When my alarm went off in the morning, I recorded my voice saying, "Get out of bed, fat boy. It's time to go to the gym." What started as 1 day became 2 days, became 3 days, became 10, became 20, became 60, then 90. The next thing you know, my diet was clean and I started to really feel good physically, which allowed myself mentally to gain some clarity. I started reading each night and in the morning. What started as 20 minutes has progressed into over 2 hours a day now. From books, podcasts, to videos, spending time with personal growth has become very important to me. Let's look at my relationships. As I found myself laying on the floor, visions of my son learning how to swim, my daughter's first time at the beach, being up at the cabin throwing snowballs, all made me realize my family was important to me. I called my wife and we started the process of, if our relationship is important, which in my book feels like it is, what can we do to work on it? And just as I worked on my health, I had to work on my relationship. What was the problem? What was the solution to solve it? Validate that what we agreed on was going to work. Show up and actually do what was agreed on every day. Sound familiar? Those are the 4 pillars we talked about earlier. As I asked my wife what was important to her, she told me what was important. She was overwhelmed. The laundry was too much. The kids are too much. The house is too much. It's all too much to do alone. I need help. We came to an agreement on the chores that needed to be done, and just like working out. Tuesday, laundry, wash, fold, put away. Thursday, I'd have a sales call with my team, and I would take the first 15 minutes. It was a 2-hour call. I put the phone on mute, scrub the toilets, wash the floors, mop. 1 day became 2 days, became 3 weeks, became 4 weeks, became 8 weeks, became 12. Then it was a routine. Showing up every day doing the work. Showing up with purpose, knowing that my family was the reason I was doing all of this. If I could change one life through the things I was doing on the outside, but if I couldn't change the life of those that were closest to me, it was all for naught. Money. In the world of entrepreneurship, people want to make it seem like it's sink or swim. You either are an entrepreneur or you're not. There's a great debate on if you're born an entrepreneur or if you become an entrepreneur. Can you teach it? Can you learn it? Is it a skill set you're born with? Well, you'll be hard-pressed to find the word entrepreneur used when explaining who I am or what it is I do. At the core of who we are, we're problem solvers. As a problem solver, the problem I had to face was the fact that I was working 70 hours, not making enough money, had no insurance, and I was broke. One of the things that was important to my wife was stability, having insurance, and a regular paycheck. I rolled up my sleeves and, believe it or not, took a step back from the entrepreneur rule book. I got a job. Yes, let me say it again out loud. I got a job. There's no shame in having a job or getting a job when you've not had one because of self-employment. It's not a sign of defeat. In a sense of survival, you do what's best for the unit. And in this case, I had to get a job to gain stability. This stability allowed me the opportunity to focus on my personal health and my relationships. The hardest question you will ever have to answer. What do you want? Times like these. It's times like these you learn to live again. It's times like these you give and give again. It's times like these you learn to love again. It's times like these, time and time again. Foo Fighters. Chapter 4.1. R. Road. Mugshots, BMWs, and the broiler room. Losing your freedom, money, and family is by far one of the hardest things that anyone will ever have to overcome. Here I am laying on a cement floor in a 12 by 12 cell with some spongy-looking mattress that had a blanket wrapped around it. Lying on the floor, looking up, feeling the prison breathe with commotion and energy of what's happening around me. No one's going to find me. My life is over. I'm everything they told me I was going to be. And just like that, it all changed. Again. Here I find myself on the other side of the prison walls. After surviving what I had just experienced, my attitude changed. Life, come at me. What else was I going to do? You can throw anything you want at me. I just overcame some really, really heavy things. So what's next? I immediately went into build mode. I've got a family to support and I've got to get back on my feet. An interesting thing happens to me when I come back to Phoenix. I have no idea where I am in the criminal system. All of these things had happened to me. We're still processing. So when I applied for work, immediately my gut tells me they're going to decline me because I've gone to jail. What does it even say in the court system? Am I a felon? Is it a misdemeanor? When the judge released me, they dropped all the charges, meaning my record should be 100% clean from this horrible experience. But there's one thing that has and will withstand the bowels of the interwebs. A picture. Yeah, a damn picture. Well, at this point, you could probably find a few of them. If you Google my name, you can find it. One picture that will never be erased. It's been cemented in history. One picture that I let hold more weight over me than the weight of the experience itself, because although legally my record had been expunged, the image from that experience lives forever. You don't know what's going to come up in the process of getting a job. That's haunted me for over 15 years. Notorious B.I.G. said it best. You're either slinging crack rock or you got a wicked jump shot. Nobody wants to work for it anymore. There's no honor in taking that after-school job at Mickey D's. The honor's in $1, kid. Giovanni Ribisi, broiler room. There were hundreds of agents on the phone. The energy was so crazy you could almost feel the building shaking with excitement. It was the end of a big month, end of a quarter sales push. Yelling, screaming, people hollering at the top of their lungs. It felt very similar to my time on stage. It felt comfortable. It felt like home. Going into this new job, I was going to be selling technology over the phone. As they bring us over to show us the desks, it's like a scene out of the movie Broiler Room. Here I am rolling up in this beat-up Nissan, running on fumes to get to my first day of work, and the parking lot looks like a rap video. BMWs, Mercedes, Corvettes, Mustangs. It's all brand new sport cars, and I'm thinking, where am I? My endorphins are on full tilt as I walk inside and pick out my desk. As I start to get acclimated, it hits me right away. Those cars, money, and nice suits, oh, they'll be mine. Who in the hell's doing it? Where do they sit? I head straight to the sales manager and ask the following. Who's a top performer? Why do they do what they do? How do they do it? And where do they sit? I asked specifically to have my desk by those people. For the first year of my career, I attached myself to those people that were in the places doing the things I wanted to do. When you put yourself in the seat of a student, you need to be humble, respectful, and take what you learn and apply it. People are lending time to help you, and you owe them results. When I leave a voicemail, I leave it this way. When I send an email, I say it this way. When I'm in a meeting, I position these things. And when I'm selling, I use these programs. Each of these top performers served as a mentor of types to me. I would take notes, implement a plan, and go execute on what I'd learned. The crazy thing is when you follow the guidance of those who are where you'd like to be, what they teach normally works. The issue is most people are lazy and never go take the action. I would come back after a few weeks and say, here's what you told me. I've done it. Here's the experience I had, and here's the outcome. Now what? Once they told me something, I would go do it and come back and show them the results so they could see that I was doing it. They were spending their time on me, so I knew inherently I owed it back to them to show results, a return back on the time they had spent in that engagement. How do you measure success when you come from really humble means? Cash money. Financial success was the way I began measuring success. Monetary gain was everything to me at that point. Just as I had set goals to learn and build new skill sets, I put a plan together to make money. Not just on my $32,000 a year base salary. Those vacations and clothes and homes and cars were not just going to happen to me on that measly paycheck. I wanted freedom, and damn it, freedom wasn't going to be cheap. My first goal, 6 figures. How do I get to 6 figures? $100,000 a year was the new benchmark and now my mission. In my mind, I wanted what money provides, which is freedom, opportunity, and choices. So I did everything in my power to put the right goals in place. You have to show up every day, just chipping away at paying the bills, paying off the debt, and saving money. Build a surplus of cash. Every quarter making a little bit more than the quarter before to the point where I was making 6 figures. That milestone wasn't easy. Yet after 36 months inside the corporate machine, I was able to climb that first mountain, raise the flag, and yell at the top of my lungs. One of the sales managers took me to lunch in his new BMW. I jump into the passenger side as we head to lunch, and I feel the comfort of the leather, the positioning of the seat, and the closeness to the road. There is a reason the BMW slogan is the ultimate driving machine. As we talk through all the car features, he slides me the sales associate's business card from BMW. Steven was his name. He then lines up the best sales pitch ever. I told Steven you were ready to step up to the big leagues. What you get by reaching your goals is not as important as what you become by reaching your goals. Zig Ziglar. I'll share 2 things with you. First, yes, I bought a new BMW. Second, the process of purchasing a luxury car is something everyone should experience at least once in their lifetime. That damn car was a sign of success for me. Congratulations. Worked so hard, forgot how to vacation. They ain't never had the dedication. People hating, saying we changed, and look, we made it. Yeah, we made it. Post Malone. Chapter 4.2, R. Road. Trouble in Paradise. In my teens, I slept on a mattress on the floor, and as an adult, there was a period of time where I lived in my car. When I tell those stories, people assume there were drugs or alcohol involved. In both cases, that was far from the truth. After my parents' separation, my father went into a downward spiral of depression. When we moved back to Phoenix, he gave up on his dreams of running his own barber shop and fell into survival mode for providing just for the 2 of us. After his time in the Army, my father worked for the power and lighting company in Florida. It was something he knew that he could do, and as a city job, he'd have the opportunity to gain a great pension. Although the power and light jobs for the city were not available in Phoenix, he did get on working for the Paradise Valley Water Company. You see, my mother and father had very different approaches when it came to work. My mother worked to own the company. My father worked to be the best at his position and go home. The main thread between them woven into my DNA, it's that roll up your sleeves, hard work, never say die attitude. I'm convinced that hard work is a gene and that doing whatever it takes and that sense of urgency is something you're born with. As a 50-year-old man, my father was in the brutal Arizona summer heat digging holes. In that 120-degree sun, he was digging holes day in and day out. My father barely made enough money to feed us. He worked his ass off, yet financial literacy and money management was never a strong suit. My mother managed the money when they were married, and now it was on him to hold that discipline. I would see him come home after a 16-hour shift, beat down, worn, struggling to get his boots off. His hands would be bruised and bloodied and covered in calluses from working a shovel. It was heartbreaking, yet it's something I'll always admire about him. In my adolescence, I tried to figure out how to make side income. My first job was working at Taco Bell. It was short-lived. It was a 2-week career. They fired me based on my age. The manager was a lady who knew our family from church, and as soon as she found out how old I was, They let me go. I was determined to make money, but at a young age, I knew how much being broke sucked, and I was not planning on staying there long. So at age 14, when my skills as the Chalupa King were retired, I made the move to something more lucrative. If you're looking for ways to make money, you're going to find them. I got introduced to a guy who was selling weed. Never been a big drug user. It was more about the economy of it. I remember I'd buy groceries for the house and some school clothes. There were a couple years I didn't even have school clothes. I'd buy clothes for myself, and it was things my dad really couldn't afford to do. Cue the opening scene from the Netflix show Narcos, please. Lobsters on private jets, suitcases full of money, kilos of cocaine, and supermodels were everywhere. Okay, let's cut through this shit. I was no Pablo Escobar. I was taking quarter ounces of weed and I'd bag them into dimes and sell it to high school kids. In my mind, I was a kingpin. In reality, I was really not even that king on jail time. So needless to say, my days as a notorious drug lord, well, those were also numbered. That mattress on the floor was a great motivator for never wanting to be broke. There's a difference between being poor and being broke. Broke is temporary, and poor is eternal. Robert Kiyosaki. Over the next few years, I became more of a risk than a benefit to my father. He was working 15 hours in the hot sun, and I was busy finding ways to get into trouble. Eventually, those crossroads came together, and a decision had to be made. In my case, it included a one-way ticket to Southern California to live with my mother and my youngest brother. Needless to say, I was not super pumped about moving away from my friends and the network of deviants I had established. There was still this deep anger and emotion circling around my parents' divorce. In my mind, I was one of the reasons they separated. The truth is, in most divorces, it has nothing to do with the kids. Yet, I couldn't accept that. Heading to California welcomed in the new opportunity to attend a new school. I wasn't the best student when I left Arizona. In fact, I was really surprised they found my school records to transfer me as I'd missed so many damn classes. In order for them to place me in the correct class schedule, I was required to take a series of assessment tests. Yes. Let's open up the page and start the assessment, shall we? Oh, good. Multiple choice. Easy enough? Looks like A, B, C, or D are my choices on the next 250 questions. B. Yep, B. B's the answer. Not just the answer for a few questions. This test is telling me B is the answer for every question. Multiple choice exams are supposed to be random, without patterns of right or wrong answers. Interesting fact. All tests are written by humans, and human nature makes it impossible for any test to be truly random. Through deductive reasoning and outlier elimination, B was the right answer for sure. All I had to do now was turn in my test answers and await the honors courses to fill up my new class schedule. 30 minutes later, my test results came in. The administrator ushers my mom into a back room. I was so smart that they wanted to do more testing. This time they took me to the back and administered some sort of Myers-Briggs personality test. The founders of this testing assume that we all see the world using 4 principal psychological functions: sensation, intuition, feeling, and thinking. Of these 4 functions, one will show up as dominant. The purpose of the test is to show how a person perceives the world around them and how they make decisions. Well, this is a tricky test to game, and there's no clear way to be a smartass when answering. Drum roll, please. The answers are in, and my new education future will be spent in special needs. Yep, that's right. I did so well on testing, the school administrators thought that best use of my time at Smarts would be in special needs classes. There are 2 types of special classes. One is for those that are off the chart IQ smart. The other is for those with slower learning skills. My test scores and behavioral testing went so well they deemed me on the border of mental retardation. My mother always said I was special, but now I had the official paperwork to prove it. Bill Gates, Eminem, Chris Pratt, Brad Pitt, and Mark Zuckerberg all had issues in school. Well, although I learned this after the fact, I have to say it was a blow to my ego, that's for sure. Getting to class in Arizona was a challenge. Now being made fun of for being special needs added to the excuses I gave myself for not wanting to go to this new school. Before I even completed a full semester, I decided to take destiny into my own hands. When I was 8 years old, my mother would pick me up from Montessori. She would walk in and search the playground for me. Was I playing in the soccer field or swinging on the monkey bars? Maybe I was in the library, me reading some classical literature. Nope, I was on this giant cement pipe in the middle of the sand pit. I was tanning my back and chatting up a group of 9-year-old girls. My mom would laugh, brush the sand off my back, and load me into the car. And in the 3rd grade, my love for women started. Let's get back to that freshman year of high school, shall we, in San Diego. My younger brother, who's 8 years old at this time, and I have a babysitter. Here I am, 14 years old, with a 17-year-old hot neighborhood girl in charge of the two of us. Needless to say, I was a huge fan of my mother working late or going out. You could trace many of my bad life decisions directly back to my fondness for the opposite sex. Well, parents are also not fans of their son making out with the babysitter. Some call it a hickey. I call it a neckball injury. You know neckball. It's like super European. At this time, I was playing recreational neckball. You haven't heard of neckball? Oh, that's right. You ever been to Europe? Well, neckball is a mix between what Americans would call soccer and water polo. Oh yes, and chess. All of these things together, but with your neck. Okay, it was a hickey. There's no talking my way out of this one. The next day, my mother bought me a plane ticket to go back to Phoenix. Headed back to Phoenix, I didn't have a suitcase. Everything I owned was in a big brown box, duct taped closed. I remember that box coming off the plane. Here I am in my ripped jeans, bleached hair, and headphones bumping NWA as my life passes me on the luggage carousel. My father had moved out of my aunt's house and into an apartment. This was my first glimpse into the damage of the divorce and the effects of depression. As we opened the door and walked into my new house, there was nothing in it at all. There was his beat-up couch, my father's bed, a dresser, and a bedroom with a twin mattress on the floor. Although my living situation had changed, my behaviors had not. The Mormon Church was a great support system for my father and I, living as two bachelors in the East Valley of Phoenix. My father had his ups and downs with attending every week, yet he did have a love and a passion for what the church stood for. He held various leadership roles over the decades, and when he was involved, he was involved. There was this father-son retreat the church held each spring. The men would pack up and head to the mountains for a few days. Well, for some reason, my dad and I didn't participate. Although we didn't attend the retreat, we did help the families load up and get ready. Everyone met at the church and consolidated camping gear and vehicles. One of the fathers left his car at the church with his keys in the car. I knew this because I was asked to put his keys under the mat as they loaded up. And as the prince of bad decisions, what could possibly go wrong? No one would ever know if I took this guy's car for a spin. Here I am, 16 years old, joyriding around the neighborhood. Oh, little do I know, somebody saw me driving this guy's car. Rolling around, picking up my friends, windows down, arm out, music bumping. How cool was this moment? The freedom, even if I was in somebody else's car. Spoiler alert, it's not cool at all. The police are called and they're waiting for me when the families all return from the long camping trip. The family presses charges and I'm arrested on the spot. And as I'm in the back seat of the squad car, my father leans in and begins to share with me what my life plans have afforded me and what my future really looks like. You're going to end up dead or in jail. You're an idiot. The choices you're making are absolutely horrible. You've got a clear path ahead of you, son. Because the incident happened on church grounds, the leadership team got involved. The church, my father, and the family of the car I had borrowed had a meeting. The result of this meeting was a behavioral rehabilitation program for troubled teens. The name of the program was Youth Development Enterprises. Oh, and the location for this camp, Maui, Hawaii. I mean, who gets in trouble and gets plane tickets to paradise? Sign me up. If it were only that easy, right? My job description included me working 12 to 13 hours a day picking pineapples, year-round school and church. Well, how hard could it really be? I'd climb up on a ladder and pick some pineapples, listen to my headphones, and see the beautiful island that's Hawaii. Yeah, that's not it at all. First off, pineapples grow on the ground in what look like aloe vera cactus plants. They grow out of a damn spiky cactus. Here I am in jeans, work boots, long-sleeve flannel, gloves to my elbows, and full canvas chaps covering my legs. The weather in Hawaii is hot and damn humid. This was not some youth vacation Bible school. This shit was a detention camp for troubled kids. But hey, I'm living in Hawaii, right? Old man, look at my life. 24 and there's so much more. Live alone in a paradise that makes me think of two. Neil Young. After about 3 weeks, I began settling into this new life. At this point, I hadn't quite really understood the severity of the scenario I was in. Often when you get in trouble for something, you're more upset that you got caught than you are the actual action you're in trouble for. In my mind, I had escaped one more thing because I was always getting out of trouble. I'd get caught and I'd figure a way to talk my way out of it. It seems like I was always getting away from bad decisions and choices I had made, which as an adult came back to haunt me because I didn't get away with them, and I didn't get away from anything, actually. My poor kids will never have a chance to get away with poor life decisions. I'm convinced I made them all before they were born. Did someone say poor life choices? Prince of bad decision here. We're going to need a cameo, please. The other delinquents and I have a favorite local beach, rightfully named Slaughterhouse. The waves get up to about 10 to 15 feet in height and come crashing down in about 2 to 3 feet of water. You can literally sit and watch the tourists, grab some sunblocks, their sponge boards, swim out, and within minutes come crawling back to their cars, bruised, beaten, and with tears down their face. As I sit watching the surf, timing when I will paddle out for a few sets, I catch a glimpse of this beautiful Canon camera. This young family had left the camera out and ran into the waters to enjoy some of the Hawaii sun and waves. I'm in Hawaii. I've got to get some pictures. I don't have a camera. I can't afford one. Well, I guess it's time for me to borrow a camera, isn't it? I get caught red-handed taking this family's camera. A full brouhaha erupts on the beach. Lifeguards, local police, camp leaders are all standing over me as I sit on my towel. We never left camp without adult leadership. They also served as the transportation to and from the beach. The young family doesn't press charges. I give the camera back, apologize, walk back to the van, really unsure as to what's going to happen when we get back to camp. This is it. You're going home. When they told me I was going home, immediately I felt the weight of the room change. This heavy black cloud came over me and I realized how much things were about to change in my life forever. And I remember hearing my dad's voice. You're going to end up dead or in jail. You're a loser. You're never going to make it. My path was set out and I was clearly on a trajectory toward complete failure. These are my stars and you can't change your stars. Once you're aligned to a specific outcome, you're on your way. I just remember pleading and crying, saying, please don't send me home. I'll change. They had me go back to my bunk and pack all my belongings. There was a plane leaving for the mainland in 6 hours. I was going home. As I sit in my bunk, patiently waiting, all I can think about was this huge disappointment I'd been to my family and what this would mean for my future. Going home also meant that the charges for the joyride were going to be pursued, and I was absolutely headed to some sort of juvenile detention center. Chapter 5. N. Now. There's no plan B. When you really lay it all on the line, every dollar, resource, energy level, and thought into something, there's really room for a plan B. You are way too occupied with the success of whatever it is you're focused on. I have also become really good at burning my life to the ground and then rebuilding. It's almost become an art form at this point. There's a fire suit in my office I can wear as I run through the house tossing gasoline like a sugar-high toddler running with a juice cup that has no lid. In my corporate career, I've always had really good mentors. These mentors all had the same qualities about leadership. They would not have me do things they themselves had not done. This skill set rubs off as a character trait as I grow and develop over the years. A part of me says it was always there, as I've always had a deep connection to understanding people in need. It comes from all the years of struggling and working my ass off. I know what it's like to have nothing and have a need. If there was a new call campaign, if there were a new series of customers we were going after, if there was a new vertical offering, I'd be the first one on the battlefield, picking up the phone, calling, or emailing, always trying new things to see what worked and what didn't. I wouldn't just tell my team to go do something and then hold them accountable for outcomes if I wasn't producing results. Each day, I would block out about 2 hours to call our clients. I would call existing customers. I would call customers who weren't buying anymore, and I would call future customers or prospects. In these discussions, I really followed a similar call outline. Thank you for your business. We appreciate and honor it. We know you have choices. We appreciate you choosing our firm. What do you like about what we do? What do you not like about what we do? And if there was something we could do better, what would it be? In doing this as an executive, you get some really honest answers. I did this for a few reasons. One was really to get closer to the business and to understanding what was happening at the front lines. People really do like to hear from the places they spend money. Just the fact that someone cared enough to say thank you goes a super long way. The other reason I would do this was to keep clients close to the business. If a salesperson left, if our competitors stepped up, or if a contract changed, I would always have a pulse and personal relationships with our top clients. The chances of them leaving our firm were less than if I'd never picked up the phone to begin with. It was a retention strategy that paid off with every call or every email. Disclaimer: if anything you do is customer facing, I highly recommend the strategy I just outlined. It works, and I will bet money your competition's not doing it. In the technology industry I served, the same answer kept coming up over and over. I would hear the same thing. I can't track my utilization on the software. I have no idea how much I'm supposed to pay. There was over $250 million tied into this problem, meaning this is how much people were spending just with our firm. The industry issue was across multiple software publishers, and it was closer to billions of dollars. It was, and honestly, it's still an issue. When people say they have the same issue over and over, you can do one of three things. You can do nothing at all. You can pass it on to someone else to figure out, or you can create a solution to solve the problem. Imagine you're going to the utility company and saying, okay, here's $100, but I have no idea how much air conditioning I've used or how much power I've needed. The utility company would come back and say, no, you owe us $150. Instead of paying $150, we would settle on, let's say, the middle and say, I'm going to pay $125. Well, now imagine that was happening at scale with some of the largest software companies on the planet to the tune of over $500 million a year. No one could figure it out. When you look at the three options above, I chose the last one. Create a solution to solve the problem. As an opportunist, I get excited when I see problems that need fixing and in areas people will pay you to fix them. I went back to my company numerous times over a 2-year period. This is a problem we can fix. We can write the software. Problem is, my employer at the time was not a software development company. We resold software. We didn't build software. Needless to say, the firm's answer was repeatedly, no. Stay focused on selling. When you're a large company who's measured each quarter by shareholders and the market, it's really hard to focus on innovations. The innovator's dilemma. Established firms confronted with disruptive technologies typically viewed their primary development challenge as a technological one, to improve the disruptive technology enough that it suits known markets. In contrast, the firms that were most successful in commercializing a disruptive technology were those framing their primary development challenge as a marketing one, to build or find a market where product competition occurred along dimensions that favored the disruptive attributes of the product. Clayton Christensen. After you hear the same problem coming up over and over and over, that problem becomes an opportunity. This one was in my face, and I wasn't just going to sit back and listen to the answer. No, we're not going to do this. What does someone do in this day and age when they want to learn something? Open up the web browser, hit the old googly, and get to work. I teach myself how to code watching YouTube videos. This works until I need to pay for some online education. And from 9 p.m. to 2 a.m. Monday through Friday, I was in learn and build mode. This goes on for about 5 months. Let's take on this newfound skill set and see if it's all theory or if we're really onto something. All I need now is someone that will let me test the new code in a live environment. A close friend of mine has a technology company that would be great for beta. He allows me to come in and test the software. Although there was more work to be done, I'd figured out a small fraction of the bigger puzzle. I was on for something big. This problem can be fixed. It's just that these companies are too big, and they don't want to get out of their own damn way to fix it. At this point, I was more of a hacker than I would say a software developer. I played an engineer on TV, not real life. It was time to bring in some experts. When you need to hire an engineer on the cheap, where do you go? Indonesia, of course. I hired some overseas dudes that were real developers. They knew what they were doing. Together, we could really get this damn thing moving and create a business. I was sure of it. The crossroads of it all got really interesting at this point. On one hand, I'm this up-and-coming executive who had just built this huge business inside the corporate machine. On the other, I'm building a new company and see the bigger opportunity to help customers at a large scale. I raised money and generated a ton of revenue for a Fortune 500 company worth billions of dollars. Could I do it for myself? Ramble on. Ramble on, and now's the time. The time is now to sing my song. I'm going round the world. I've got to find my girl. Led Zeppelin. From the time Eve gave Adam the apple in the beautiful Garden of Eden, to Steve Jobs giving us Apple computers out of his garage, the same process exists and can be tracked down to any business that has or ever will be built. This is a process I aptly name the Execution Manifesto. It goes back to those 4 pillars. Finding a group of people with a problem. Create a solution to solve the problem. Validate that the solution works. Validate that people will pay for your solution. And sell your face off. Now was the hard part. I had to go sell my new solution to this huge problem. Could I sell it? Starting a business inside another company where you're working a day job is a very tricky thing to do. As an individual contributor, it's a little easier to navigate the waters because there aren't a ton of legalities that can come back on you. As an executive, it's a whole new ballgame. Enter stage left, my new legal team. You don't want to spend your adult life working in an industry simply to walk away from everything and start over. Well, you can, but I recommend you have a plan first. You see, it took me 6 months to build what I call a strategic exit. Every hour I spent, everything I did, every resource I used, none of it was tied back to the company I worked for. It could never be traced back because none of it was within my existing set of responsibility and roles. We raised $1 million, and that went to $10 million. We had $800,000 of customer revenue that had come in based on this new venture. It was all just such a crazy experience. I go from sleeping on a mattress on the floor to making 6 figures. Now making $250,000 a year as an executive and a shareholder. I'm remarried, 4 beautiful kids, beautiful wife. Now I'm faced with a choice that will change my life forever. I have to leave everything I know and go full tilt in this new business venture. The risk levels are on a completely different level. It's not just me. I have a whole family and a lifestyle that's now going to be up in the air. As a kid growing up, we owned nothing, homes, cars, etc. Not until I was much older and my parents remarried Did our family actually own assets? We had just built our home from the ground up. You go through the process of choosing the carpet, the paint, the knobs in the kitchen. Every last detail has your heart and soul in every decision. You're creating a safe place for your family. Owning a home is, after all, the American dream, right? 2 of our kids were born in that home. It's the only neighborhood and the only house some of my family had known up until that point. I'd worked 38 years of my life to get there. And here I am building this company, not knowing what was going to happen when I already had a good paying job. A weird thing happened right as I was in the middle of making a decision to leave my corporate job. As I started to look around me, I saw the people I look up to are respected. We're all out of shape. We're all miserable. And we're all very unhappy. I didn't want to be part of a system. Could I build a back door and escape? Essentially, we had built a 7-figure business. It's time for me to exit corporate America. We had a full team at this point. I drained the kids' bank accounts, all of their college funds. I'd put everything on the line. There was no looking back. In the exit, I had budgeted our money down to the dollar. We would have no lapse between my last paycheck and the first money going into the new company bank account. In my mind, it was all thought out, and it was a very well-executed plan. Everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. Mike Tyson. Our family climbs into the SUV. We had just had Sophie, so she's a baby. Zion, our eldest daughter, gets in. My wife gets in, puts the baby in her seat, and we're headed out to celebrate Zion's birthday. It was time for celebration all around. The garage door opens. A gentleman standing about, 6'2", 280 pounds is standing by, waiting to walk into the garage area. His hat's pulled down low. I can see his eyes as his sunglasses are just leaning off his face. Am I getting robbed? What's happening? I look at the house. I look at the car. I look at the toolbox. I see a hammer. I see the man also taking a deep breath. I can get to the hammer before he can get to me. Everything that meant anything to me was in the garage at that very moment. It's my family. As I'm thinking about my next move in that split second, the guy goes, "Are you Kolby?" "Yes, sir." He hands me a sealed envelope and walks out of the garage. My previous employer was serving me papers. I was being sued. They were suing me for this new company I had just built. I won't belabor what happens in the legal process when you fight a Fortune 500 company, but I will tell you this lesson that was learned. In the court deposition with a microphone in front of me, with the legal department there, I lean over and I say this. "Is this thing on?" Tapping the mic. They look over and go, "Yep." I politely say, "Go fuck yourself." They say, "Excuse me?" And I say, "Go fuck yourself." All I need to tell you is if you are in a court deposition against a Fortune 500 company, you never say that. In hindsight, saying that wasn't a bad idea. It was a horrible idea. In my mind, I'd done everything the right way. It took 6 months to exit. No company information or assets were used, and I had built the business from an idea that received a valuation of over $10 million. Honestly, I didn't think I'd done anything wrong. We go through 3 months of the process, and at this point, we had no money, like zero money. We're getting ready to lose the house, the cars, and everything I took a lifetime to establish. As I'm up against the wall fighting for what I think is, quote-unquote, fair, my world is falling down around me. My wife says, "You have to stop. You have to stop. You can't keep going. You have to stop." I just kept pushing and pushing and pushing until finally I just look in her eyes and I say, "This is it. We lost. I have to walk away." We close it all down and I tell my lawyers we're not going to continue. My only request was that they didn't hinder my ability to find work in the same industry. They couldn't stop me from finding employment. We packed up everything we owned, sold off all assets of value. We listed the home and were walking away from everything my family had worked so hard to attain. Everything around us was going to change. As the provider of the household, it's really hard to explain the level of self-loathing and emotion that happens when you lose it all. When you lay it all on the line, you don't always have a plan B, and that's okay. Chapter 6, E, Energy. you're going to end up dead or in jail. Becoming a single dad changed my life. Actually, let me make a correction. Being a father has saved my life. You see, post-divorce, I just kept going. I didn't stop, slow down, or miss a beat. I just kept doing what I was doing. I kept working. I kept writing music. I just kept working. It's one of those things that consistently shows up. I just keep working. Now look at that paragraph. I did, I kept, me. That was a big issue, as now it was no longer about me. It was about we, about us. No longer could I be a selfish asshole. If my ex-wife reads this section, I know she's rolling her eyes, or would just tell you I'm both selfish and an asshole. There's more comfort in that now. I'm okay with it. Every night, every day, I was just working. Working. Because I worked in the evenings, I had our eldest daughter in the mornings and during the daytime. I'd pick her up around 8 o'clock, take her to daycare, have some baby daddy time, and then I would take her back to her mom's house around 6 p.m. If I didn't drop her off, her mom would come pick her up so I could go to work. This routine seemed to work for about 6 months or so. And this was a really blurry time for me. The heartbreak of the divorce took a toll on my ex-wife. Where I buried myself in work, she took a different path. She started a new relationships, began abusing substances, which in turn led to some really bad decisions. Now, these life choices have affected her and have been a source of pain to all of us for years. And then one day, my daughter's mother just stops coming to get her. And I remember it was 1 day, then 2 days, and 4 days, and 5 days. She just stopped coming. It was time for change. There were these signs that were saying, do you want to be a dad or do you want to be this rock star? Without hesitation, I chose to be a dad. Had I stayed a rock star, I'd probably be dead. In my view, the only thing worse than a rock star is a rock star with a conscience. Bono. I'd sold everything we had, a bunch of musical equipment, beat up furniture, and some paintings, completed my last week of gigs, packed up my stuff, and we went to Phoenix. During this time, I remember thinking to myself, am I going to have to rebuild again? I was doing something I loved. I felt forced and I didn't want to leave. I just didn't want to go. But in the thought of either being a dad or being a rock star, there's really no decision. I chose to be a dad. I didn't even think twice about it. It wasn't a hard decision. I didn't have to belabor the thought of being a dad or being this personality on stage. We packed up everything we owned, which all fit into a tiny truck. We sold everything that didn't fit into our truck and tossed things out that served no purpose. I had a shoebox full of cash on the front seat while my daughter was buckled into her car seat next to me in the cab of the truck. Scraping the ice off the windows, we began the drive to Arizona. As we got to Arizona, a very interesting set of circumstances happened. Again, I'm starting over. I'm at a place where I'm familiar because I lived here through some of my high school years, but now I'm an adult. So the landscape looks a little bit different, and I have a contrasting skill set. Finding work becomes a main priority. I put together 17 resumes that outlined anything I could do to make money. Staying at my dad's house with a 2-year-old was a very temporary position. We weren't going to be there long. The plan was to find work and to do it fast. From serving tables to writing music, joining a street team for a record label, working with bands, graphic design, really anything I had a skill set for, we just needed some sort of income. Starting over from scratch this time looks and feels a little different. The odds are a lot higher now because it isn't just me, it's my daughter and I. Through some family connections, the doors of opportunity open, and I start working in a warehouse building computers. And this was around the time that Dell was gaining notoriety in the marketplace. There was a lot to be said about taking individual components and building your own computer. It made every computer feel real personal, hence the term personal computer or PC. There I was in this warehouse building computers, loading software, turning screws. And the other part of my day was spent selling. I remember the owner saying, "You should be selling, you shouldn't be building computers. You've got a personality which needs to be talking to people. It's not back here in the garage." When this door of opportunity opens, two things happen. One was the start of a 15-year career in technology. The other was the first step in becoming an outlaw. During this time, I'm steadily in communication with my ex-wife about where we were and what we were doing. When we left Arizona, I didn't just pack up and leave without a game plan. People knew where we were going. I didn't just leave. And when I got to where I was going, I was very clear about where I was. When we left Utah, everybody knew the plans. But just because people know where you are, that doesn't mean that they will support your decisions after the fact. Oh, and money. Yeah, money makes people do weird shit. The call went something like this. I'm not giving you any more money. Our daughter is with me and I'm handling 100% of the expenses. Then the actions after went something like this. I stopped sending my ex-wife child support. At this point, we had joint custody, and my ex-wife was the custodial caregiver, which meant I owed her child support monthly. She had 51% custody. I had 49%. So I was paying her child support. And after 3 months paying money I didn't really have at the time, I got caught up in my ego saying, I'm not paying you anything. I have our daughter. She's with me. Isn't possession 9/10 of the law anyway? Well, who knew with kids that really isn't the case? Month 1, month 2, month 3, they all come and go. Everything seems fine. And then all of a sudden I get a knock at the door. I'm at my dad's house. It's a federal agent. He wasn't there to hand me a parenting award. He was there to arrest me for kidnapping. Yes, kidnapping. Crossing state lines with my daughter without telling the court is a felony. Who knew felonies were such a big deal? Legally, my ex-wife has more custody than I did. The officer takes my wife from the house, right out from underneath me. As they take my daughter, the officer steps closer to the doorway, preventing me from leaving. I don't get to say goodbye. I don't get to kiss her face. I don't get to tell her it's going to be okay. I don't get to look at her eyes. I have no chance to comfort my 2-year-old baby as she's whisked away. Folsom Prison Blues. I hear the train a-comin'. It's a-rollin' round the bend. And I ain't seen the sunshine since I don't know when. Johnny Cash. Tears of sadness, anger, and confusion fill my eyes as the officer drives my daughter away in an unmarked sedan. I clearly remember thinking how backwards that was, how it didn't make any sense. So an agent came to my dad's house and literally took my daughter from me, and there was nothing I could do about it. I remember seeing her go. She was crying, and she didn't really know what's going on. That made 2 of us. It was all a blur as the phone rings. She's going to be safe. She's going to be back with her mother. Back with her mother? Yes. This literally makes no sense to me because her mom knew where we were. Her mother was in no place to take care of our daughter. So I didn't understand why they were doing this. It seemed like a technicality versus really what was right. Well, now what? The hell do I do next? My mission of being a father didn't change based on the court's decision and my lack of proper planning. Agent Smith instructs me to pack a bag and head to Utah. It's a shameless Matrix plug. I can't remember the guy's name. Fly to Utah. You need to turn yourself in, and we'll let the court settle this out. It's clear that your child's not in danger, but legally on paper, your ex-wife still controls the decisions that get made. Fly to Utah, turn yourself in, you'll go to court, and all this stuff will flush out. Everything will be fine, son. The hell does that even look like? Turn yourself in and surrender. Okay, so what does that look like to turn yourself in? And surrender means that they're going to arrest me. I was really nervous about getting on an airplane and flying to Utah to be arrested. They assured me it would be a process and it's just simply a formality. I'd get there, they would arrest me, take my pictures. I wouldn't even go into a holding cell. Then they'd process me out. Then I'd go to court, and the court system would figure out what was going to happen next. Well, here's the thing. No one knew when I was leaving or really the sovereignty as about what had just happened. Telling my parents, oh, I'm okay. I'm going back to Utah. There's some legal stuff I got to deal with. Everything's going to be fine. After landing in Utah, my friend drives me down to the police station, and I turn myself in. I'm going through the process thinking, this is all just a process. I got nothing to worry about. They take my pictures, then they do my fingerprints, and they're going to process me in. I'm in a jail cell, and I'm like, all right, I'm in jail. The hell am I doing here? An hour goes by, 2 hours go by, 3 hours go by. Next thing you know, I've been there 12 hours. Now the weekend, locals start joining me. You know, the drunks, crackheads, tweakers, and criminals. It's a damn party, the one you do not want an invitation to. Now it's a full cell. There's probably, 30 of us in here. And I have to ask, where are they hiding the piñata and juice boxes, boys? Grabbing the biggest dude by the arm, I whisper, you're on my team, big fella. If you've ever seen an episode of a cop show where they've got people in a jail cell, they show you is pretty much what it is. It's gross. You got guys taking a shit in front of you, wiping their asses, drunk guys on the floor throwing up on themselves, some weirdo in the corner masturbating. It's gross. Jail is not a fun place to be. And I just remember thinking, what in the hell's going on here? After 24 hours, they call my name. Kolby, Kolibas. Yeah, dude, close enough. I think they're letting me go. It's high fives and see you suckers as I exit the cell. They transfer me into a different room. In this new room, they tell me to strip down naked. It seems like kind of a bizarre request, but I comply. I strip down naked, and it was the pull your nutsack up and bend over so I can see your cavities. Like, what the hell's going on here? They put me in an orange jumpsuit, load me on a bus, and transfer me to federal prison. The entire time I'm saying, somebody tell me what's going on here. Nobody will help or even talk to me. I quickly found this out. Everyone in jail is innocent. Who knew? Here I am sitting on a bus headed to the point of the mountain. Nobody knows where I am. I don't know where my daughter is. I don't have a case number and nothing with me but street smarts and a bright-ass orange jumpsuit. I'm on this bus headed to prison. This wasn't some high school field trip to the local zoo. This shit was not jail. I was headed to prison. As we line up to start the process of entering the prison, I remember everything feeling so surreal. Where am I? As clear as day, I remember my dad's voice again. You're going to end up dead or in jail. Was this a moment I should be proud of? Like, hey, Dad, look at me, I made it. Or was this just another test that had me questioning everything around me? Here I am thinking I've done the right thing. I'm doing the right thing. I'm taking care of my daughter in a position where she can't be taken care of. What's happening? What just happened to me? I literally sold everything I owned to be with my daughter, and now I'm here with nothing, and nobody knows where I am. Nothing is more humble or scary than sitting inside a system not knowing. Where are your freedoms? Why have you lost your freedom? I have no idea what's about to happen next. 129,600 minutes, 2,160 hours, 90 days. That's 3 months. It was the longest 3 months of my life. Every 12 hours, a guard would come from shift change. Every time the guard would switch, I would ask them if anybody had any ideas or updates on what in the hell was going on. Every 12 hours. Until after being there a couple weeks, I got a call of my parents. This was a powerful call. I had to tell my dad where I was and ask for help. There was no light at the end of this tunnel. Getting a lawyer and going through the legal process while being trapped inside is a very tumultuous and not easy task. As you listen to these stories, you'll see one thing rings true. There are many times where I'm in a situation with my back against the wall with no clear way out, yet I somehow keep going. When I'm asked how I've been able to survive some of the things I've been through, this moment comes to the forefront of my mind as a defining foundational set of circumstances that has forever changed me. No money, no material possessions, no family, and no freedom. The average jail cell is 6 feet by 8 feet in size, with steel and brick walls, and there's one barred door that locks from the outside, separating me from life as I knew it. As I lie on the concrete floor looking up at the ceiling, freedom seemed like a past tense experience that was so far out of reach. There was one thought that kept circling me like a rope that could be used to either escape or hang myself. I had done the right thing, and I was willing to risk it all to ensure my daughter was safe and with me. What position had I put myself in? Here I am thinking I'm doing everything right, and I've lost my freedom. I'm exactly where my dad said I was going to end up. But in this circumstance, I thought I was doing the right thing. I hadn't made a bad choice in my mind. I thought I was doing the right thing. Losing your freedom is one of the most powerful change agents for future life decisions. Finally, we all go to court, and I'll never forget the words that came from the judge after the process was all said and done. She apologized. Yes, she apologized for the experience I had just gone through. In the court's eyes, it was clear it wasn't a case of kidnapping. It wasn't a case where I'd done something wrong. It was a formality in the system I hadn't filed the paperwork. They take the handcuffs off me in the courtroom. And at this point, we walk into the processing room. This is where I thought I was supposed to be 3 months ago. No shit, I start laughing out loud with tears streaming down my face. I'm laughing. I'm laughing on my way out to pick up my beautiful daughter and can't wait to get back to Arizona to start our lives over again. The pharmacist's wife. A nice, calm, and respectable lady went into the pharmacy, right up to the pharmacist, looked him straight in his eyes, and said, "I'd like to buy some cyanide." The pharmacist asked, "Why in the world do you need cyanide?" The lady replied, "I need it to poison my husband." The pharmacist's eyes get big and he exclaims, "Lord have mercy, I can't give you cyanide to kill your husband. That's against the law. I'll lose my license. They'll throw us both in jail. All kinds of bad things will happen." "Absolutely not. You cannot have any cyanide." The lady reaches into her purse, pulls out a picture of her husband in bed with the pharmacist's wife. The pharmacist looks at the picture and replies, "Well, now that's different. You didn't tell me you had a prescription." Chapter 7.1. Why? You. Tattoos, bikers, and pirate ships. Tattoos are a funny thing. There's an interesting stigma around them that seems to follow a pattern of things in my life. I would like to think of myself as a critical thinker, doing what others can't or won't, staying true to myself and reflecting that through different aspects of how I show up. The thing is, I've never done it specifically to try to make a statement. It's just the way that I'm wired. When you see some people with tattoos, there's usually a stigma attached to them. You're a gangster. You're in a motorcycle club. You've got drug problems. Yes, tattoos have been associated with gangs and prison and violence for a really long time. Even though many people in prison and gangs have tattoos, not everyone who has a tattoo's been to prison or is associated with a gang. Another dispute against tattoos is that they're unprofessional. Well, maybe there's some truth to that at some level or with specific careers. But the other side of that discussion follows self-expression. Can expression of self be considered unprofessional? More often than not, tattoos are a visible representation of who we are, our personalities exposed. And as somebody who's been an artist, I've been painting, drawing, or creating as long as I can remember. It started when I was around 8 years old. I've been doing art for a really, really long time as a continuation as to who I am. It's a statement that separates who I am from what I do. Maybe it's a combination of bringing those two, tattoos and art, together somehow. Well, tattoos are becoming a way more acceptable part of life now, especially as more people are getting them. You see them a lot more. They're not as novel as they used to be. Can't you just see all these 80-year-old men with full tattooed sleeves? It's going to be awesome. My favorite role when walking into any room when I'm wearing a short-sleeve shirt? A pirate. Pirates have tattoos. Stories from the tattoo parlor. Back in the 70s, my grandfather and his drunk friends decided to all get tattoos. As they look through the flash pages and artist book, my grandfather decides. He walks up to the counter ready to share his final choice. My grandfather requests, "Born loser," be tattooed on his forearm. One of the female friends in attendance offers to do it for him. When he awoke the next morning to admire the new tattoo on his forearm, he was in amazement. It was everything he wanted and more. Oh, wait. This tattoo said "Born Looser," MG. Not only did the girl misspell loser, she also autographed her work to assure my grandfather could remember this glorious artist forever. Only a loser misspells looser. What is the first thing that comes to mind when I say tramp stamp? Tramp stamp is a derogatory term referred to a tattoo which a woman places on her lower back. It is especially popular among women who were born in the late 80s or even 90s. Fair or unfair, these tattoos have a socially constructed connotation associated with them. These women are labeled as tramps, whores, or other derogatory sexually promiscuous terms. Urban Dictionary 2018. My first tattoo? Oh, why, heck yes, it was a tramp stamp. Out of all fairness, it was a tribute piece to my time of living in Maui. A dolphin jumping out of the ocean is cool, right? So not gay. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I'm just saying if tattoos were for gangsters and people in prison, I was clearly going to be someone's girlfriend based on my art choices. It reminds me of a song my friend Dan Clark wrote named "Getting an Oriental Tattoo on Your Lower Back Doesn't Make You Spiritual." Who knew? My first tattoo was when I was 19, second at 23, and then I waited until I was about 30 or so to get any more work done. But it was a downhill ride after that. I've really lost track. Once I've decided to go below the sleeve line, all bets were off. In my corporate days, I knew first impressions were going to be everything. I'd be looked at different. So to counterbalance that, I wore suits every day. If I was going to wear long sleeve shirts in 115-degree Arizona weather, I was going to look damn good doing it. Nobody had any idea I was concealing so much ink. We went to corporate functions and people would always ask why I was in a suit. As an executive at a large firm, I had to be a chameleon. Taking my kids to school and picking them up is always something I've enjoyed doing. As a father, I'm very involved in my children's sports and school functions. But if you look at the other dads who show up, we look a little bit different. Those other dads are all in collared shirts, polos, khakis, and loafers. And then I roll up on a motorcycle with a hat on, tattoos, boots, clearly standing out from the other dads in the parent pickup line. And that can be a bit intimidating to parents and other kids when you live in the suburbs. People don't always know how to approach or act around things that are different. We all have differences, yet some of us can be picked out in a lineup when we walk into a room. I'm 100% okay with the life choices and I know who I am. Yet when it affects the ones around me that I love, it's a bit of a different game. What started with Sophie had now carried over to Noah. Let me explain. Noah came up to me one day as I was dropping him off for class. How come you look different than the other dads? The kids in his class were asking him why I had so many tattoos. I could tell my son was nervous and apprehensive. The hard part was that I couldn't tell if he was embarrassed or if there was some other kind of emotion going on. This was a pivotal moment in our relationship as I had to come clean with him. Son, your dad is a pirate. The reason his dad had so many tattoos was because he grew up on a pirate ship. Your mother was a mermaid we met at sea. There were many tales of treasures and debauchery, Squidbeard the pirate and the many mates who had long beards who had also lived in my pirate ship. We laughed and shared stories of the countless hours of swashbuckling that led to the beer belly and all the tattoos. There was also something else I had to share with Noah. I had to let him in on a secret, that he too one day would be a pirate. He could join me if he so chose the path of becoming a pirate. Not everyone could be a pirate. Only special dads can earn the coveted title of pirate ship captain. My son ran back to his classmates to share what he had just learned. My dad's a pirate. That's why he has so many tattoos. I've never seen a group of 4, 5, 6-year-olds run up and try to question my masculinity as much as I had the day my son told his friends I was a pirate. Every one of them questioned me. No, you're not. You're not a pirate. You're not a pirate. All I had to say is when I looked down at those little kids and I snarled up my lip, Narg, I am so a pirate. You would have thought I told them to eat broccoli or clean the house. I've never seen so many little kids scatter so fast in my life. I challenged each one of those 6-year-olds to prove me wrong. And if they couldn't prove me wrong, bring your dads. And if your dads couldn't prove me wrong, bring your mother, because surely the mothers couldn't prove me wrong. Now when I roll up to school, my kids raise their head with pride, knowing that not only is their dad a little bit different, but it's okay to not look like everyone else. That's the pirate story. Chapter 7.2, Why You, Tuscany. Try never to be the smartest person in the room. And if you are, I suggest you invite smarter people or find a different room. Michael Dell. You are as good as you're ever going to be right now. As you listen to this audiobook, you are the best version of yourself and who you'll ever be. Health, wealth, and intelligence. Are you okay with that? Are you really good with all aspects of who you are in this very moment? I know that I'm not. And I know that I can always be better today than I was yesterday. Tom Bilyeu, founder of Quest Nutrition and Impact Theory, recently gave a keynote at our annual event named Meltdown in the Desert. He looked around the room and said, everybody that's here, I want you to think about this. You're as good as you're going to be right now. You're as smart, you're as strong, you're as healthy as you've ever been right now. And if you're okay with that, we'll move on. But for those of you who are following and who aren't, there's an interesting equation I follow. Information in equal ideas out. The whole premise behind this equation is the fact that we'll never grow if we don't take time to learn. We won't just wake up one day with six-pack abs, $1 million in the bank account, and the woman or man of our dreams laying next to us. I don't care what Ty Lopez or Dan Bilzerian tells you on social media. Work has to be done in order to grow. Well, nearing the end of 2017, I made a new personal commitment to myself. There are a series of skill sets that I don't have, yet there are things I would like to be doing and things I would like to learn. I made a list of the skills I needed to acquire. To be the better version of myself or the best version of myself, I had to be continually looking for growth. I immediately looked inside and outside of my personal and professional circle of influence. Who are the people doing the things I'd like to do? Who's making more money? Who's giving back to social good? Who's written multiple best-selling books? Once I identified these people, I put myself in scenarios to be of service. It was not about what can I gain, it's about how can I serve and learn. The first opportunity manifested through a sponsorship to an upcoming CEO summit held by our friend Randy Garn in Salt Lake City. They needed some additional help running the vendor booths. I showed up, and instead of rolling into this room talking about what I did or who I was, I came into it with a level of humility and of service. What could I do to help those around me? After a few hours of setting up tablecloths, tables, chairs for around 300 people, it was time for dinner. I was unsure who was going to be at this event, but I did know that it was some of the state's top CEOs, leaders, and influencers. And it was important for me to be in that room for a few days simply to learn and network. Here I am in my traditional outfit of jeans, motorcycle boots, t-shirt, and a hat, being asked to join the event founder if I wanted to join them for dinner. I'm hungry. It's late. Let's go eat. We get into a car and head to the restaurant for dinner. As we're driving to the restaurant, we pull up, and I can clearly see from the atmosphere outside, I'm outclassed, and this is a shirt and tie dinner event. This is not, let's just go have a bite. I'm thinking tacos. They're thinking 5-course meal. It was a speaker and sponsored dinner. As we walk into the restaurant, I see NBA and Utah legend Mark Eaton. We're having dinner with Mark at his restaurant, Tuscany. Everyone's wearing a suit jacket, collared shirt, and slacks, and here I come rolling in boots and a hat. I'm laughing on the inside, on the outside. I'm saying, you guys are assholes. Utah can be a strange place. I was born and raised here and have a heightened sense of environmental awareness. A frosty cold adult beverage is calling my name. I don't know who I'm going to offend. All I know is that it's been a long day. I head to the bar and knock back a pint before anyone can see that I'm drinking to loosen myself up for what's about to happen next. They roll us into the dinner room. We're some of the first people here. Wait staff is setting up the bread and tables and linens and silverware, and people start to come in. I start to shake hands, tell stories. I don't know anybody that's in the room. I don't recognize a single person. I'm with my business partner and friend Steve, so at least I've got that going for me. And here I am with Steve in his flannel, me in my t-shirt and motorcycle boots. We are completely underdressed. My mom always told me be the best dressed man in the room, or at least have the best shoes, because shoes make the outfit. And here I found myself failing on both counts. Here comes someone else I do know. My friend and TV personality Scott Duffy walks in. He has a full film crew with him as they're filming a reality television show. I get up and head over to give Scott a hug and a dap. I immediately start to make friends with the film crew and start to feel more in my zone around the camera. As dinner begins, we go around the room for introductions. As we circle the table, each person has the opportunity to share a bit about who they are and about some type of accomplishment. The shine of the television cameras illuminate each person's face as if we're in some back room being interrogated. I love that feeling. Scott Duffy sold a company to Richard Branson, TV host, global superstar. Brandon Steiner purchased the old Yankee Stadium, played basketball against Michael Jordan, and built a sports empire selling dirt from old stadiums. He's also one of the funniest people I've ever met. Rudy Rudiker. Yeah, you know, Rudy. The Notre Dame legend who was the inspiration for the 1993 film Rudy. Mark Eaton, NBA legend, all-star, and now best-selling author. Brendan Bouchard. His videos have been viewed over 100 million times across social media. He's a New York Times bestselling author and rated as one of the world's leading performance coaches by Oprah.com. He's a life coach to Oprah. I mean, come on. Then they get to me, and I remember thinking, what am I doing here? What am I going to say or do that doesn't have me sounding like a complete asshole? Then they get to me. Well, I've been arrested more times in this state than introductions made thus far at the table. I was trying to downplay my introduction until somebody there actually called me out and started sharing my accolades. Over the past 14 years, I've created over 14,250 pieces of original content that have been distributed across the top 5 social media channels, most of that done in the last 36 months. I've created over 10,000 pieces of content that have reached over 10 million people. This is no small feat or something that has happened on accident. It has allowed me the chance to work with Fortune 100 companies as well as some of the world's leading entrepreneurs. Humble brag. It was in that moment all of us became equals based on the success that we had had in our individual and respected fields. There was no longer a need to feel out of place or as if I didn't belong at that table. We then completed the introductions with our last guest, Mr. Dan Clark. You see him pop up in this book a few times, and there's a reason. Dan Clark, Hall of Fame speaker, New York Times bestselling author, contributor to the Chicken Soup for the Soul series, and high-performance business coach. He's also one of the funniest dudes I know. As Dan begins his introduction, we start razzing each other and making inappropriate jokes. It then becomes the Dan and Kolby show for 25 minutes. And we're now towards the end of dinner, and I'm still in a mode of humility and service. The wait staff seems to be a little bit overwhelmed, so I jump in to help pick up. Everybody's leaving and saying their goodbyes. And I find myself in a corner having a conversation with Brendan, Dan, and Brandon. We were in tears, cracking jokes, sharing stories, and reflecting on the evening. You see, coming from a level of service changed everything for me. By putting myself in rooms and scenarios or places with people that were doing things I wanted to do, I could also be exposed to great things. You want to know how to write a best-selling book, like the one that you're listening to now? You want to learn how to make $1 million? You want to know how to build a company? Well, you find out those who have done it before you. You sit down and ask questions. You provide as much value as you can for them. Ask for nothing in return. Be open to learning and do what they've done. What I realized at sitting at a table full of people who maybe on the outside have it all figured out is that nobody has it figured out. Everyone's looking for help in some aspect of what it is they're doing. We are way more similar than we are different. You just have to be willing to put yourself in the right room. Stay alive. Well, the way I feel is the way I write. It isn't like the thoughts of the man who lies. There is a truth, and it's on our side. Dawn is coming. Open your eyes. Look into the sun as the new day rise. Jose Gonzalez. You made it this far. We're almost done. Hang tight as we get ready to conclude. The author. Kolby Kolibas is not just a keynote speaker or high-performance business coach. He's a corporate executive, best-selling author, film producer, video course creator, relationship-selling guru, and master of social media marketing, who is also a devoted father who is passionate about life, laughter, continuous learning, martial arts, reading, tattoos, football, surfing, and spending time with his 4 amazing children. For the first 15 years of his professional career, Kolby spent time his time as a C-suite executive in corporate America, orchestrating the sales and marketing operations for the first 15 years of his professional career. Kolby spent his time as a C-suite executive in corporate America, orchestrating the sales and marketing operations for companies like IBM, Hewlett-Packard, Microsoft, Dell, and many others. In the last 10 years, Kolby has focused his passion, vision, talents, and extraordinary expertise on helping entrepreneurs generate millions of dollars in revenue by partnering until their startups are killing it in the marketplace. Kolby has worked with over 2,000 business owners and thought leaders and has appeared on over 125 podcasts, radio, television broadcasts, with a global impact on social media that has reached over 10 million impressions in the last 36 months. He has also been featured in Entrepreneur Magazine with a personal coaching client list that includes the first shark on the hit television show Shark Tank, a primary contributing author to the Chicken Soup for the Soul series, professional athletes, military leaders, and gifted educators. With a relentless commitment to service before self and a deep understanding that where much is given, much is required, Kolby has spoken to over 5,000 young adults on the importance of legacy. He serves as a facilitator to the Junior Achievement Entrepreneur Program, is an ambassador to Rising Tycoons, and has assisted over 500 families build personal businesses to escape poverty through arbitrage, and continues to use his influence and resources to help our men and women in the military get reacclimated as they return from service. Well, wait, one last thing. You are the summary of the 5 people you associate with most. Who are you surrounded by, and what's the impact you are leaving on others? When we started this time together, I mentioned who this book was for. There's one person. That one person will go on to change tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of lives. I'm asking you to join me in identifying 5 people in your life that would benefit from this message. You can become the guide in helping provide the roadmap to someone else's journey. At this very second, someone is stepping into some set of life experiences that will change them forever. They feel alone and have no idea that this book or audiobook is available as a resource. In the Bible, we're taught that Noah was told by God to build an ark. Everybody laughed at him. Did you know only 8 people were saved and ended up believing in that message? Now, I'm not Noah, and I'm not saying this is by any means scripture. It's a guide and a tool to help show you there's light in the darkness, and we're not alone. It doesn't matter how many of you believe in this message, we only need one. You see, this is not some 5-step process. I'm here just like you trying to figure it all out. Together, we can endure any storm. Cheers, Kolby. You can follow me on social media, facebook.com/I'm Kolby K, the letters I M Kolby, Kolby, Kay. You can also find me on Instagram, instagram.com/I'm Kolby K, and you can also go to my website, www.imkolbyk.com. Thank you so much for listening to this audiobook. I hope you've enjoyed listening to it as much as I've enjoyed putting it together, and I look forward to talking to you soon.